Hey, this is your host, Anthony Tank Mansfield, and with me today is
Ben Frietsch.
And this is What You Into.
What you into? What you into?
All right, back in the basement. Ben, I don't know. Is this third time on the show or fourth time?
Oh God, dude! Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think this might be third or fourth.
Sure.
Usually we're doing video game talk when you
Yeah.
swing by. Yeah. So speaking of, what are you gaming on right now?
right now PC. I bought that gaming laptop a few months ago, and I haven't bought anything for console since. I've only played my Xbox a handful of times since I got the PC.
What's it like being part of the aristocracy now of PC gamers? Do you have to wear like a frilly like shirt when you're playing the games? Do you have to extend the pinky when you pick up your Monster Energy drinks?
So I never thought I was going to be a PC gamer. But I'm a collector. Was a collector. I don't even know if I can still call myself a collector. But once I realized that nothing I was purchasing at the store on disc that I was bringing home with me was actually a playable copy of that game,
Yeah, you blew my mind with this,
I got really disenfranchised with that. Because I
which
would
is a bummer.
purposely go and buy what I thought was the physical version
That's what I've been doing
of all
for
my
years.
PS4 games.
Yep.
I mean, I've got bookshelves filled with discs. Little did I realize that all that's on that fucking disc is a download token that you put that disc in your console. It authenticates to the server for whatever company, Microsoft, Sony, and then it downloads basically the whole fucking game onto your hard drive, and that's what you're playing. I really thought I was buying stuff that could just be put into my machine 30 years from now, and boom, it's just going to play.
Yeah, when you told me this, it was like somebody told me Santa Claus wasn't real.
It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because my whole thing was I thought it was going to be like, I was kind of hoping like an end of Fight Club situation where like maybe the banks fall, but we get rid of the internet, but we keep the power. So I was like, well, I could still game. Not anymore.
Nope.
Nope.
And that blew my mind. And then I got to thinking, it's like, okay, well, like I already have trouble playing the discs that I still have for PlayStation 2, only because my machine's kind of hard to hook up to new TVs. The technology has changed, so I don't want to be reliant on Sony continuing to have this game available to me.
Right.
And I understand that any digital game can be delisted anywhere. But Steam, which is where I've been buying the vast majority of my games lately, 10 years from now, I get another computer, I put Steam on it, my library is right there.
Right. And I think that's an incredible way to do it, and it's such an easily transferable way to do it.
Well, and I have the Steam Deck.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden, the vast majority of my games, I can play them at my house. I save the game when I'm done playing. It uploads to the cloud. Steam's cloud is awesome so far in my experience. And then I pick up my Steam Deck, as long as I've got an internet connection wherever I'm at, I fire that machine up, it syncs to that cloud, bam, my most recent game save is right there. Baldur's Gate right now I'm playing. I can play it on my PC at home, save it, pick up my Steam Deck wherever, I'm right in the same spot in the game, continue right on playing. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, and I think that that's cool that we're to that point in video games where there's not that difference between the mobile system and the home system. Where now it's just like, look, man, it works.
And even beyond that, most of these modern games, if it's got a multiplayer online component, you're online playing cross-platform.
Right.
You're playing with people that are on their PlayStation while you're on your PC. You're playing with people that are on their Xbox while you're on your PC. That's really cool.
Right. Yeah. I agree, man. I think it is cool. I don't know if I'll ever make the jump because for me, it's like my PlayStation is just like my home entertainment hub, and I use it for everything. But when you say stuff like this, I'm like, yeah, I can see where that would be very nice to have.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that now gaming laptops are actually affordable in price,
Yeah.
and powerful enough. They're not going to run 4K ray tracing.
Sure.
You need to build an expensive ass desktop computer for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the modern, like mine is a Lenovo. It's a lock. It's called LOQ, and it's great. It's got an NVIDIA graphics card built into it. It's Ryzen processor, so it's just it does really well as long as you're not trying to crank settings to the absolute max.
Fair. Yeah, and I think that there's really not much where I need to crank the settings to the absolute max. Like, and maybe it's just because I'm a little older and I didn't grow up with it, but I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing on the screen as it is.
Yes, yes.
Like, I'm good.
Your monitor typically for your computer is not going to be huge.
Yeah.
So, how exactly crisp and ultra high def does it have to be on that size?
Right.
If it's a 65 inch, of course.
Right.
So,
Well, look, man. For me right now, I'm playing Helldivers 2. I've been talking to you a little bit about this. And you were saying you were playing Baldur's Gate.
Yep.
I'm having a blast at Helldivers 2. This is like one of the first online games I've enjoyed in forever. I'm usually not an online guy. The only time I really played online before was playing Horde and Gears of War. But I really dig the Helldivers community, and it's just fun to go around and blow the shit out of stuff.
yeah, my son's playing that game off and on. I cannot get into online multiplayer stuff typically. The only online multiplayer game I can think of that I've ever really played even a decent amount is the Borderlands series.
Oh, nice.
And that's just because it's like co-op team based
Yeah.
against the computer.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm usually not a head-to-head guy. Like, I don't really want to go out and play COD, and I don't want to go out and play like Madden and like verse people and stuff. That's not really my jam.
For me, it's even beyond that. I'm a digital introvert. Like, I don't want to be exposed to random public dickheads.
Yeah.
While I'm trying to enjoy my video games. The couple times like Halo, I tried to get into Halo.
Halo was rough.
And oh my God, every time I'd be on there would be some little prepubescent asshole white kid spouting racist, homophobic, transphobic bullshit constantly. I don't want to hear some kid calling me the N-word and using derogatory slurs, and it's just not my style. I don't want to have to deal with the random chance that some asshole is going to be on there just spouting that bullshit. That's just not what I want to deal with when I'm trying to chill and play a video game.
Yeah, I think that the Wild West factor of the old school Halo stuff has went down compared to the modern era. Like, does it still exist? I'm sure to some extent, but it's not something you run into with the frequency that you used to.
Yeah, and I understand that the current gen moderators have gotten significantly better with that kind of bullshit, but I guarantee I'm not going to hear it when I'm playing single player bullshit by myself.
Yeah, and I'm usually with you as far as being like a solo guy. Like, I like being offline. I like playing my solo stuff. This is just the first thing in forever that's actually got me to dip my toe back in the water.
Right.
To be like, all right, like, this is cool enough. I actually want to try it and see it, and now I find myself addicted to it.
Yeah.
Although I can't say it's the only online multiplayer game that's got me into it. I also enjoy playing Fall Guys. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the games that I get lost in, they're usually going to be majority narrative based. So I like the games that have a big story more so than just, a lot of the action and stuff. So
yeah. Yeah, it depends on what I'm in the mood for, but I'm usually with you as far as that goes. I find myself doing stuff where if I play a big story game, then the next thing I'm playing is like very, like
mindless.
Yeah,
fun.
mindless
Yep.
fun. I need that palate cleanser,
Understand.
Like after going from something like a Horizon Zero Dawn 2 or like even like a Far Cry game where it's like, all right, I spent like 50 hours playing this. I need to play something like, all right, I'm just going to play some Katamari Damacy,
There you go.
or I'm just going to, just something mindless and fun.
Yep.
That I can just kind of wash that taste, or just go down and download an indie game.
Yep.
Something that's a little shorter, a little different. I can knock out in like 5 hours.
Speaking of indie game, in a different route from what you're talking, have you seen the Indiana Jones game that's getting ready to come out?
No, what's up with that?
Ooh, I know for sure it's going to be on Xbox. I'm not sure, but I assume it's going to be PlayStation. But yeah, there's a new Indiana Jones video game getting ready to come out that looks awesome.
Are they setting it up like Harry Potter? Is it like that kind of open world vibe, or are you doing missions?
It's missions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, I was hoping they didn't go the open world route with Indiana Jones.
No,
I think that would get really weird.
It's Indiana Jones buried up to his neck in sand in the trailer I saw, with some Nazi asshole in his face giving him shit, talking about they're going to leave him for dead. So typical Indiana bullshit.
Classic Indiana Jones.
But it's a young Harrison Ford, digitally. So
That's cool.
It should be real cool.
Sounds awesome.
Yep.
So tonight we're talking. You're currently in the midst of trying to watch every episode of Raw ever.
Yes. Well, I don't know about that. That's daunting.
So can you kind of explain to the listener like how this like? Actually, let me do this first before I ask you how it started. So, listener, to give you a little bit of background, we're talking about WWE Raw, and a little quick background on it. As of June 3rd, 2024, it has aired over 1,586 episodes. It's a weekly program. I think the only time there was interruptions was like the dog show back in the day on USA.
I don't even know that they... Did it just get shut out altogether? Did it get moved to a later time slot? I know that the dog show would always fuck with their rating.
Yeah.
I just don't remember specifically when that era was.
Yeah, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was one of those deals where it was like the number one, like most episodic live television series of all time or something.
I feel like that might be what it currently is. Like the longest running episodic television series in history, if I'm not mistaken.
It's gonna be either that or The Simpsons at this point.
Yeah,
one of the two. Which actually, The Simpsons would predate it, but there would be more episodes of Raw than there would be of The Simpsons.
Well, the Raw for years now has been live every week.
That's true, and that's the other thing too is like it's a live series,
right.
Which also is one of those.
And
things
even when it wasn't live every week, it was live every other week.
Right.
They'd record 2 shows back to back.
Right.
And then air them 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So I think even there, it's probably got Simpsons beat because it's concurrent episodic. There's no reruns.
Yeah.
The Simpsons, no matter what season, those episodes got played multiple times because all of them would have reruns and stuff.
Right.
So it wasn't like every week for 52 weeks, there was a brand new
fresh shit.
episode happening. So yeah, it probably does have that record now.
Again, like starting in 1993. So this means that this thing is over 30 years old at this point.
Yep.
It's pinballed around to different places. It started out on the USA Network and went to TNN, which later became Spike TV. It went back to USA, and now it's getting ready to go to Netflix in 2025.
Which must have cost a pretty penny.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Netflix is definitely investing heavily in the new WWE era. And I wonder, too, if since it's all under now the, what's the merger with UFC? Is it Titan?
TKO Holdings.
TKO Holdings, that's what it is. Sorry, Titan was the old under Vince thing. Yes, but yeah, TKO Holdings. And I wonder if will we get to see maybe UFC come to Netflix next, since they already are going to have the WWE there.
I know that Netflix seems to be very much investing in as much live sports and sports type stuff that they can. They're doing the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight whenever the fuck that thing actually ends up happening. So, that seems to be what they're trying to do right now. I know Peacock has a decent amount of live sports on it. They're doing NBA games from time to time on Peacock, on top of the fact that it's basically the WWE network right now. I'm just curious, once Raw moves over, is Peacock still going to be the home of the network?
I don't know. I mean, that wouldn't make sense for it to be, but maybe. I don't know how that's all going to shake out, man.
Streaming competitors, but at the same point in time, they've usually had programming on multiple different networks.
Well, and again, UFC is over on ESPN right now.
Right. So,
so it's
all their properties are all over the place.
But you're absolutely right with live sports being the moneymaker of television. I mean, it is the thing that has kept cable alive, and it's the thing that streaming wants, and it's the only thing that really matters. Because everything else on streaming, it's like, man, I can watch this whenever. And there's not really appointment television left anymore. I mean, really about the only thing that was like appointment television was I'd say like Game of Thrones, and then you could maybe make somewhat of that argument for The Last of Us, but that's kind of it. Like there's not like consistently a thing where, oh, I got to be at home every Sunday night at 9 o'clock to watch this, or I got to be every Thursday 8 o'clock. I got to be at my house.
Well,
anymore.
even beyond that, even if it is a high profile show like Last of Us, Walking Dead, any of that bullshit, even in its heyday, its absolute prime, you are far more likely to have the outcome of a sporting event spoiled for you than you are any of those shows.
So you got to watch it live.
Because you're going to be walking down the street and there's going to be somebody
Yeah.
pissed off that the team lost or whatever. Motherfuckers like talking about sports.
Yeah. Your phone's going to tell you if your team won or lost.
Period.
Yeah.
It might not tell you who got killed by the zombie this week,
Right.
or, you know.
But yeah, if you're a guy like me, you're going to have apps dinging on your phone that tell you immediately.
Well, and especially modern day, my cell phone, I cannot avoid spoilers for wrestling.
Yeah.
The second something happens in the world of wrestling, whatever I'm scrolling on any of my apps, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, the algorithms are like, oh, hey, you really, really want to know that, this happened. It's like, son of a bitch.
That's how they get you.
Yep. Damn technology.
So what made you decide to go back and start with like Raw episode 1? Like what?
Just honestly, boredom was what got it really started off.
Was this a COVID project?
So yeah, I mean, I've been kind of working on it for years and years and years, just ever since I got the WWE Network in the first place. I would often turn wrestling on while I was straightening up the house, just whatever. I'd use it as a lot of background stuff. And it was easy to do because you had the WWE Network.
Didn't you go through like every WWE pay-per-view at one point?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, so
I have already gone through every WWE and every NWA, WCW, whatever promotion, like from Starrcade 83 up. I have watched everything that I could watch from those on when it used to be the WWE Network. I missed the actual old school WWE Network.
Yeah, same. That was great.
Well, it was better organized.
Way better organized.
Than Peacock.
Yeah.
It was much simpler to find things.
Agreed.
It was much easier to watch things in like the actual correct timeline order.
Yes.
Anything you wanted to do chronologically, it was easier to find. I also like how on the old WWE Network, every one of the big shows, you could go on and jump straight to a specific match.
Right.
It's like they had great thumbnails, and now it's just much more. It feels like a normal streamer. It's just like fast forward, play, where am I at?
Yes.
Fast forward, play, where am I at? Reminds me of old VHS tapes. It's kind of a pain.
Let's talk about getting into you watching Raw, like kind of the setup for it with the time that you decided to come in. We're in what's called the new generation, correct?
Right.
All right, so let's kind of set this up for the listener, people who are familiar, who aren't familiar. So kind of I'm a 43-year-old man, and I grew up in the 80s as a child. That's kind of where I think of wrestling. I think of like starting for me as like Hulk Hogan, body slamming Andre the Giant, Macho Man, all that kind of stuff.
And that's not too far off time-wise from when I started watching wrestling. I know the first wrestling that I ever remember seeing was a Southern promotion of some sort. Georgia Championship Wrestling. It was an NWA promotion, whoever it was, because it was like Gatlinburg, Tennessee, I'm sure. A cabin in the mountains, had some sort of cable from way, way back, but it had Superstation TBS.
Yes.
So I know for sure I was watching 605 Wrestling. It must have been at least Georgia Championship Wrestling, if not the original, Mid-Atlantic. So that was the very, very first that I ever saw. But in Cincinnati, it was much, much easier to find WWF programming on TV.
Yeah, where I was at, I was able to get, after school on ESPN, they would always have either AWA or USWA. So that's where like I first like watched the Von Erich stuff and all that.
Yeah,
And
all the AWA from the casino.
yeah, the casino or the showboat, whatever the fuck that thing was. It was like, what is this?
Yep.
And watching that, and then we had TBS, so I could end up getting like all the NWA stuff that turns into WCW.
Right.
So I was able to watch the mothership baby
Right.
on Saturday night at 6:05 and main event at 6:05 on Sunday night.
Well, what was weird is when I was little, when I was young, at first, the first TV wrestling that was on around here was the Sheik's promotion from Detroit.
Oh, that's crazy.
Whatever the hell that was,
Yeah.
Big Time Wrestling or whatever.
Wherever the Sheik is bleeding this week.
Then like the Sheik pulled some stupid weird, and they ran their shows at the Cincinnati Gardens.
Right.
I mean, it was like that was the big territory around here. Like people around here knew Bobo Brazil and that kind of bullshit. But then the Sheik did something. I don't remember if he set a motherfucker on fire or if he sicked a snake on somebody. But some bullshit happened that pissed off some executive bigwig at Channel 5, which was their TV station. And this motherfucker was like, I'm done with wrestling. And took it off and said he wasn't putting that shit back on TV.
Damn.
So it took like Hulk Hogan rock and wrestling, like it took the popularity getting to the point where they couldn't ignore it for it to start showing up in syndication on Saturday mornings around here.
Yeah, in the 80s with like WWF at that time, which eventually does become WWE, that is where like, yeah, I definitely prefer the original, the Federation, but it's crazy because of like how much in pop culture pro wrestling was at that time. It's like the crossover with like Cyndi Lauper and Hulk Hogan popping up in like Rocky 3, and you would have Muhammad Ali showing up at WrestleMania and all these other big celebrities. And also the partnership with NBC for like Saturday Night's Main Event. Whenever Saturday Night Live wasn't on, they'd bring in Saturday Night's Main Event for these wrestling shows. And wrestling was huge. And then you kind of start to see, kind of after WrestleMania 3, you start seeing it kind of like that was kind of the big pop. And then you see it start to shrink back down again. It starts getting
blew
out.
its load
Yeah.
for a little while. Got a little flaccid.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Well, in the build up to that, even prior to that, there was a definite crossover between the world of pop culture and wrestling just with the Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler bullshit.
Yeah.
And that was Memphis in the early 80s. And I was kind of surprised that it did okay at the time. I mean, as far as overall publicity.
It got on Letterman.
They were on Letterman, etc. But I'm kind of surprised that whatever the fuck network Taxi was on back then didn't really find some way to, cross-pollinate somehow with that bullshit. One of their stars was being featured heavily on wrestling television in some of these weird, markets. So I thought that would get bigger than it did, but
hindsight being 2020,
right?
And it's one of those things where
it was wrestling.
It was wrestling, yeah, very much so. I mean, maybe that's because it was like a Southern thing at the time.
RASSLIN, that's wrestling.
Wrestling, and then also just kind of the weirdness of Kaufman. Like, I mean, he was a guy that I kind of wonder like how he did play in the mainstream pop culture at that time. Because Andy Kaufman was just such a weird fucking dude. Yeah. And he was doing a lot of stuff where it's like, wait, is this a joke? Is this real? Is it fake? And, for some people that's fun, but for the general public who are used to like knock jokes and shit, they're just like, what the fuck is this?
Performance art at its finest.
Yes, 100%. So, all right, so we see ourselves like in the late 80s starting to slide out of this. And you can see Vince McMahon is starting to think like, all right, something's got to change. And then this introduces us into the early 90s, and we start to get into the new generation.
Well, let's not gloss over why we had to get into the new generation. I mean, Vince McMahon had been on trial for steroids. He was trying to distance his company as much as possible from the inflated motherfuckers that he had been searching for years up until that point.
Yeah.
The days of the Diana Ball and all that bullshit were gone. He needed motherfuckers that could pass the sniff test. So
100%.
all of a sudden, he wasn't worried about a Hulk Hogan or a Hercules Hernandez or a Kerry Von Erich or any of these jacked up, physically ridiculous dudes. Mm-hmm. He was looking for guys that looked like a very athletic, larger than normal, but still natural physique. So all of a sudden, your quote-unquote smaller guys, your Bret Harts and your Shawn Michaels and all them started actually getting a lot of attention. You never, ever, ever would have seen a 1-2-3 kid in the older WWF.
No,
if
no.
he was there, he only would have been a jobber to be there on the syndicated shows for the Undertaker to hit a tombstone on and, look ridiculous.
I mean, it's one of those things where WWF, especially at the time, has and forever has been called the land of the giants.
Oh, yeah.
That is the thing. Is like if you want to stick out, you got to be a big, athletic, larger than life person, and
a
especially
giant
in the
like
80s.
Andre, or a giant like John Studd, or even a giant like Hillbilly Jim. He was a gigantic human being.
Well, or even like Roddy Piper. Where like Piper, when you look at him against Hogan, it's like, oh, he's not that big. But if you saw Piper in real life, like, fuck, this guy is over 200 pounds. He's over 6 feet tall. Like, this is a big ass dude.
Well, it's, not to take any sort of a sidestep, but it's like Steph Curry. When you see Steph Curry playing basketball, he looks like the tiniest dude. But then you see him in like a crowd at his charity events, and you realize how tall 6'3", 6'4" looks to around normal human beings.
Yeah.
It's just when he's on an NBA court, he looks like a midget.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you caught us there on that to point that out. Because, yeah, it is a definite change where McMahon, this becomes not the first time and also not the last time Vince McMahon will have trouble with the law.
No, but the only time I recall him having a neck brace.
Yes, it's showing up in court. And also like the fear of like he actually thought he might be going to prison because that was the other thing too, where like they were talking to like other people to step in and run WWE in his absence if he did have to go to prison.
Huh? Yeah, good old Jerry. That would have been different. Memphis and WWF had a bit more in common back then than Bruce Pritchard wants to admit. They were both gimmick-heavy territories. And, realistically, if Jerry Jarrett came in and booked WWF, I don't know that it would have looked drastically different. He may have pushed different people, but it still would have been wild, crazy train wreck bullshit.
There would have been some more cowboys.
Yeah. For sure.
Some more cowboy hats would have been on screen. But as far as like outlandish big characters go, it feels like that kind of
It couldn't have been any more casually racist than WWF already was.
Well, and what a way to lead into the new generation. So this is the thing that's interesting with the new generation. So as you set it up there with like, we're no longer the land of the giants. We're now transitioning into like smaller guys like Shawn Michaels, like a Bret Hart. Workers, guys that can get in the ring. They're still posing. They're still athletic, but they're not like complete gassed up huge dudes.
Well, and WWE always had the workers. They just never pushed them.
Right. I mean, you had like Savage, you had Steamboat, and shit like that. Or Tito Santana.
There's a reason the IC belt was always the most exciting matches on most of the shows.
Because it was the best worker belt.
It was always the best workers. It was the guys that wound up the main eventers once the new generation started up.
Yeah. And kind of, what do you see as like, besides just the size of the guys, what do you see as the things that make the difference between the what we saw in the 80s and the new generation that we saw in the beginning of the 90s?
Well, the professions changed.
Yeah, is it time to get into that? Let's get into that.
We lost our barbers, but we gained our, trash men and our voodoo witch doctors and our,
Yeah, this is a super weird time. So, like, WBE kind of has this mix of, like, hit and miss shit during this era because you do have Bret Hart, and Bret Hart's just kind of a guy that wears pink, and then you got Shawn Michaels, who he's still a guy, but he's kind of like he's like a good looking guy.
It's like that male stripper.
Yeah, kind of like if Ric Flair was a male stripper kind of deal. Like he can have a good match, but he also like is kind of like Motley Crue stripper guy.
Yeah.
But then you also get like Razor Ramon, you get Diesel. Which are cool gimmicks. I always liked the Razor Ramon gimmick. I didn't realize as a child he was just ripping off Scarface.
Yeah. Neither did Vince McMahon, thankfully.
Yeah. I also love the fact that like Scott Hall totally not like from Cuba, like
at all,
not from Miami at all.
His old shit when he was AWA, if you remember him.
Yeah.
From those old, showboat shows.
With the big mustache?
Big Scott Hall.
Big Scott Hall with the big mustache.
What the fuck gimmick is it? Big Scott Hall. Looking like Magnum TA's fucking great big brother.
Yeah.
That mustache was impressive.
It was. And I've never seen a womb room quite like that before.
I just remember going into those AWA things. I remember vividly watching Big Scott Hall against John Nord.
Yeah.
The Barbarian. whatever the hell he was, the Berserker. That guy was gigantic. He actually made Scott Hall look small.
Also on the gas.
Also on the gas.
A lot of the gas.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta love it.
We also get Golddust out of this era, which is a super interesting thing in retrospect because it's like that character shouldn't have worked, but it did.
That's because Dustin Rhodes, any gimmick you give him, he's going to put his all into it.
He gets it over.
And he was willing to do things that none of the other wrestlers would have been willing to even attempt.
Yeah.
He took it to insane extremes from time to time as far as the overall character work. I'm glad that in modern day that character couldn't work because I think whether it was intentional or not, a lot of it was extremely homophobic. It was extremely typecasting. And for like ribs and stuff like that, it used to be like literal, just sexual assault bullshit. So I'm glad that, in the modern world, that kind of shit wouldn't fly. But at the time, I mean, it had people very, interested.
It was interesting to see this dude play this like androgynous, like sexual character that like, and knowing it, like he's Dusty Rhodes' kid, and that's like the other thing that makes it weird because you're kind of like
it's not a rib.
Yeah, like you're not some nobody that's coming in like I've seen you as like the natural like
in WWF.
Yeah, you're like a cowboy kind of dude, and you're playing this character that's like very obviously gay.
First time I ever remember seeing Dustin Rhodes was WWF, but it was back when it was Dusty Rhodes was in there as the American Dream Dusty Rhodes with the polka dots. Dustin showed up sitting ringside. They were feuding with, who was it? Maybe, it was the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And he was trying to buy Dustin Rhodes' ringside seat from him, and Dustin wouldn't sell it. So they like jumped him and beat him up, and then Dusty went to his rescue. So, I mean, it wasn't even the first time Dustin had been in the WWF. But the gimmick was so different that if you really didn't know who the hell it was, you wouldn't have known who it was.
Well, and it was also just so different from the time because like nobody had ever done anything close to that before to that level.
It was so strange because like one thing that I didn't like about the start of the Golddust character is how it would fluctuate from like he was supposed to be this like weird Hollywood movie buff that was like trying to reenact things, and he'd do these vignettes from like Hollywood locations.
Yeah.
But then like when he showed up, it started being all this like absurd homosexual, parody stuff that was just it was very confusing. It's like they couldn't pick a direction.
Well, and then it's also interesting to see like what he ended up evolving the character into over time, where like he becomes this character where like he kind of drops the sexuality of Golddust, and then Golddust is kind of a comic relief for a while, like when he teams up with R-Truth like decades later.
Even the fucking him and Booker T stuff.
Yeah.
Jesus criminelli. Like that was some of the best stuff I ever saw. Golddust and Booker T. Oh man, but once they dropped the like the sexuality aspect of it and just started more focusing on the lunacy, it definitely got way more entertaining to me. And to this day, he's still somewhat doing that gimmick
with the face paint and everything.
The weird half face paint. It's just red dust now instead of gold.
Yeah.
Or blue dust, or well, I guess I can't use blue dust. Don't mean to step on the blue meanie there. Sorry, bud.
Sorry, blue meanie. But yeah, I think you also make a good point where it's like one of the weird things about pro wrestling is the normalcy of no matter how crazy you look, it's considered normal. Where like if you saw Golddust or Dustin Rhodes today in his modern gimmick of like half painted face on the street, you'd be like, the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But in the world of wrestling, it's like you don't even like think for a second that like that's weird. It's like, that's just who he is, and he likes to paint his face to express himself. It's part of his character.
The other thing there is I kind of came up in the era where they lived their damn gimmicks 24/7. If you saw Randy Poffo walking around at the mall, he was dressed in Macho Man fucking gimmick. Period. He wasn't trying to walk around incognito. Hulk Hogan dresses in that stupid spandex bullshit everywhere he goes.
He's still clutching to that
so
fucking skull rag, brother.
When Golddust came in, it was still very much in that era where you didn't, for whatever reason, really put much thought into the fact that he's in a costume.
Yeah.
It's just, of course, that's what he wears.
Yeah, that's what he exists in this world.
Of course. But then you'd see the pig farmers wearing their, coveralls, and it's like, well, of course that's what they wear. They're pig farmers.
And that's the perfect step to transition. Let's talk about the jobs that didn't work. Because again, this is like this weird thing with the new generation era, and I don't understand why. But we went from like the over-the-top characters of the 80s where all of a sudden in the 90s everybody had to have a job.
Yep.
And so then we got stuff like the Goon, which he was a bad guy that was a hockey player, got kicked out of hockey, and now he's a pro wrestler.
Yep.
We also got Mantar, which was a bizarre half man, half bull character.
Well, I was dying laughing listening to one of the Cornette podcasts not too long ago. Jim and Brian were trying to figure out what Mantar was supposed to be. And for whatever reason, it seemed to me like neither of them had ever heard of a Minotaur.
Yeah, or like a centaur.
Well, they were talking about a centaur. And then he was like, but Jim's saying, but that doesn't make sense because that's part horse and part man. And, yada. And I'm sitting there like screaming at my radio like, it's a Minotaur. Mantar was a Minotaur. Body of a man, head of a bull. That's why he wore that ridiculous headpiece to the ring. It was a rib, sure.
What? Why do you think like someone like Big Van Vader gets over and someone like Mantar doesn't? Because like on paper they're kind of the same thing. Where it's like it's a gigantic dude that's like over 350 pounds. He wears a cool fucking hat to the ring. He gets in the ring and he throws down. What's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, they both kind of would stand there and bellow at people. And it probably also had a little bit to do with, and then the bell rang.
Yes, and that was what I was going to say. The difference is Big Van Vader has talent. That's the difference. The greatest big man of all time.
Cool. You're a great, big, giant behemoth motherfucker that wears a very interesting contraption down to the ring. But I remember Mantar trying to get into the ring with that helmet, and he kind of couldn't because he couldn't get the goddamn antlers through the ring or through the ropes. And once he got in the ring and the bell rang, then he had to wrestle.
It's also one of those characters like, how do you talk as Mantar?
Yeah,
like
Leon did not have to worry about any of that.
How do you feud with Mantar? What is your beef with Mantar? What is Mantar's beef with you?
Yeah, are you wearing red?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure how do you write for Mantar?
Like, is he gonna try and gore you because you have a cape that you're taunting him with?
Yeah,
it was doomed from the start. But he was a great big dude, and that's all Vince McMahon saw sometimes.
We also had Duke the Dumpster Drosy because everyone wants to see a wrestling trash man.
Well, everybody knows a trash man.
Everybody knows trash man. It's real. Yeah. Oh, or the Repo Man.
Gonna come and your car's gonna disappear. And to be fair, the Repo Man,
Barry Darso did a good job as the Repo Man.
Dude, Repo Man was cool.
I
never expected him to win the world title, but it just was weird because what killed me about that is when you see him in character as Smash,
right? He
looked gigantic
and so much different.
God, when he was the Russian character prior to the whole demolition shit, when he was Crusher Khrushchev, he's was a big dude, fucking gigantic. But then all of a sudden, as Repo Man, he looked like this little itty bitty sneaky ass little dude.
Very lean.
It was weird.
It was weird. Also, he was like a human cartoon character.
Yeah.
Like just the whole thing with like his fucking goofy bandit mask and this weird like gray trench coat with the shoulder pads made out of pieces of tires. Yep. And he's like, he's coming to repo your shit and he's like sneaking through windows and stuff.
Hey, he worked his ass off to try and get that gimmick over.
It was. I think this is also part of this thing with the new generation where like it. Whereas in the 80s it was like a cartoon. This felt extra like a cartoon at this point with like the jobs and stuff and these characters. Like I'm not even quite sure what we're feuding about with some of these guys.
I think also at the time there might not have been quite as much focus on driving narrative. Mm-hmm. I think Vince was maybe a little distracted with other things like, fucking IcoPro and the goddamn World Bodybuilding Federation. And, he wasn't as focused as Vince normally would be.
What a weird thing to try to make work.
Yeah.
Like that, the entire World Bodybuilding Federation thing, where he's like, "We're gonna have them pose,
Yep.
but then they're gonna have storylines."
It's like, yeah,
It's like,
only
I don't-
only Vince wants to make a TV show out of that kind of shit, and when he hit a home run, he hit a home run, but otherwise, Vince has a good amount of failures.
It's really weird to see a guy who is in a pop culture or was in a pop culture business
Yeah.
that does not really fucking understand pop culture
At all.
It's wild.
He only watched his own shit.
Yeah, and I think the newest band he ever heard of was like AC/DC.
Right.
Like it's wild that and that was the thing that I always bagged on for like the past decade when Vince was in charge. I'm like, name me another like fucking pop culture entity where like the main creative vision is somebody who's a fucking baby boomer.
Right.
Like, and I'm not talking the guys that are signing the checks or on the board. I'm talking about like the people that are writing, that are creating the creative vision and force.
And is completely insulated from everything.
Yeah.
Has no frame of reference for any pop culture references. Like, people have to bring that shit to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's another good point too, because like I feel like if you sat down with like a Steven Spielberg, like a George Miller, even though they're like in their 70s and 80s, like you could name modern pop shit and they could get it, or like somebody like John Carpenter who's like still playing video games and stuff and like making music, and even though John Carpenter's got to be in the 70s now, you can still make modern references. He's like, oh, I know what that is. Yeah. Vince McMahon, just no clue about anything, just a horse wearing blinders.
Yeah, and you could tell that by some of the people that he'd have as guest celebrities at some of the big shows that he would think was the biggest deal out there, and the rest of us are like, who the fuck gives a shit about that person being, a guest commentator or timekeeper or whatever?
I also wonder what it was like when Vince met celebrities, because like, there's no way he knew who like Fred Durst was from like Limp Bizkit. Like,
not even a little.
And like having like Limp Bizkit play out the Undertaker at WrestleMania, like I just would love to be on the fly on that wall for the conversation of like him meeting Fred Durst and just having no clue who this guy is or how many millions of albums he's selling thanks to MTV and TRL.
The part of that makes me chuckle the most, it's not just the thought of Vince, but I know for sure Pat Patterson was probably right there also, and I'm just trying to picture Pat Patterson's elderly French Canadian ass trying to Fred Durst, and like the thought of the two of them meeting some of these people for the first time, it just makes me chuckle.
I love the idea of a gay French Canadian who's chain smoking in the back of arenas trying to figure out what new metal is.
Right. Yeah. I don't get it. Where's the corn?
Where's the corn? I don't understand. Oh shit. Yeah, man. So it's also it's a weird time where like Vince McMahon tries to get Macho Man to retire from the ring because he's getting too old, and
at
gets
the
him
age of 36 or 37.
Which in modern, like today, where AJ Styles is 45, and it's like, why would this guy ever retire? He's got a 6-pack and he's still rocking.
Right. Yeah. Vince had interesting ideas. I won't say that the thought of Randy in the commentary booth wasn't great.
Yeah.
I mean, Macho Man was great on commentary.
Yeah, well, because it's Randy Savage putting his all into everything.
Anything he tries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have no beef with that, but the thought that he could only do the commentary, that's the part of it that I didn't understand.
Well, and it's just insulting where it's like, I get when you make the transition to the booth, if you're a guy like, like the way Taz did, where it's like, hey, brother, this is banged up, that's banged up, everything fucking hurts. Can I like try this, slide behind here, and like, learn and figure out how to extend his career and make it a thing. I love to see people, I love CM Punk forever on commentary, and I hope someday he gets a full-time spot at the desk,
right?
Because he's great at what he does and like getting people over and talking. He can talk for himself as a wrestler, but he also has the ability to talk for others when they're in the ring. And yeah, it's just crazy to me though. But I hate the idea of like, Vince like going to Randy Savage and being like, hey, we don't have room for you anymore, you're fucking old, now you're behind a desk. And
just the thought that you're putting him out the pasture at that age, it just, that in and of itself made no sense. And it's not like they were like swimming in main event talent at the time.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things too, and you think they would understand it most of all being what they are. Like, 36 years old is old for an athlete, a professional athlete in a professional sport where you're professionally playing against each other. It's not in wrestling where it's a work. Like,
Right.
You can talk and be like, hey man, I'm not going to do that bump, but I'll do this. And by the way, I'm over with the crowd, so we don't really got to do much. I just fucking raise an arm and 18,000 people go,
Right.
like, it's not like being a wide receiver in the NFL or like being a point guard in the NBA or, a baseball pitcher that loses like 5 miles off his fucking fastball.
And the funniest part about all that is every time they needed a main event performance, they'd put the Macho Man in anyways.
Yeah.
Even though Vince said he wanted him on the commentary table, every time they needed him, they'd pull that card out and there'd be the Macho Man kicking ass. There's a reason he jumped to WCW when he decided to.
What was the original setup for Raw? Wasn't it like exclusively in New York? Wasn't that the whole deal? Like Raw was war from the
Originally, it was, what was it, the Hammersmith? Hammersmith.
It wasn't the Hammerstein.
But it was in that same building.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, what the hell was the original Raw? Oh, that's gonna bother me because they even did
I got it. I'm on the Google.
It wasn't the Hammersmith or the Hammerstein Ballroom. It was the Manhattan Center.
Yes, it was the Manhattan Center.
There you go.
Yes,
I knew it would come to me.
It was the Manhattan Center, and because it had that same lead in where it was always that siren with like that weird,
Oh my God.
that weird saxophone music.
Oh, yeah. But the original Manhattan Center, what killed me about that is, that was like 12 or 13 stories up in this building, apparently.
Yeah.
And there was only like a little freight elevator to get up
Yeah.
there. So it would take them forever to get the ring up there because they could only take it up one piece at a time because of how small and ancient the freight elevator was. But yeah, that had a very distinctive look. You had all the bleachers on the one side. It definitely provided a manic atmosphere.
Yeah, and I feel also like too. I think that even though Vince isn't the best at what's going on in pop culture and society, I think there were enough people. One, he was younger at the time.
Yeah.
And two, I think there was also people around him who were like kind of seeing what had happened in the music industry, and it's like, hey man, like the world is shifting and changing. Like it's no longer hair metal and over the top stuff. Like now it's switching to something else, and they hadn't made the pivot yet to realism that they would eventually get to, but instead they end up in this weird cartoon land again of like characters.
He had that weird Rob, whatever his name was,
Feinstein or something.
It's like some local radio guy in the
New
New
York
York
guy.
market.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
He just decided it was going to be one of his commentary guys, and it was just fucking weird. The nice thing about that, though, and especially that particular venue, the Manhattan Center, at the time, they were hovering at this weird level of popularity.
Yes.
They had an audience, and especially in a city the size of New York, they had people that showed up there every fucking week for that show.
Right.
And at the time, man, all the tickets were dirt cheap. Mm-hmm. Like literally like $12 tickets to go to Raw. So there were people that would go every week.
Yeah.
And, at the time, Vince was so worried about the look of the show, he wasn't trying to make a giant profit off of ticket sales, any of that kind of stuff. He wanted asses in seats. So if he had to fill it up by selling $12 tickets, hey, so be it. That's what they did to fill up the damn Alamo Dome. So,
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah,
Make it look good for TV.
and that's the big thing is you got to make it look good for TV.
Right.
And Vince McMahon always understood that, and the WWE has continued to understand it.
Yep.
This is something that AEW and Tony Khan should take a lesson of.
Yeah.
Where it's like, stop renting these big ass houses and then tarping off sections. It looks like shit.
Well, and that's, when Nitro showed up, that was part of the wow factor for me was, when Nitro first got started, they were smart as hell about the venues. The first couple episodes were from the Mall of America. It looked great because it was unusual. But the other thing with that is, from day one on Nitro, it was a TNT production. Mm-hmm. It looked like a big-time live sports event.
Well, and they brought all their people in to run the cameras from the basketball crew and all the other TNT sporting elements,
lit.
and TBS.
It was the angle. It looked big time. And as soon as Nitro started, catching attention, all of a sudden, like Raw started looking real dingy and smoky and it was weird. It was like a very dark, shadowy, presentation compared to the TNT broadcast.
Yeah.
TNT looked like a big time sporting event.
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to that grit of New York where WWE's always been based out of. And, you got that in the early 90s stuff with Raw was War. And then, you see that with Shotgun Saturday Night later during the Attitude Era. They always wanted, some element of that. Or Vince thought
Dirty.
it was cool. Yeah, dark.
Yeah. Because, that's what you get in New York.
Yeah. But it's weird, though, because then, your characters are, by and large, human cartoons.
Bright, colorful, flashy. Yeah.
And we didn't even talk about The Undertaker yet, who during this era is in a bit of a transition because, he's still the dead man, but he's, he's still that gimmick, but at the same time, you care about it. He's not just the gimmick. I don't know how else to describe this. I'm trying to...
He started doing his own promos.
Yeah, there's more connection with the character. It wasn't
just the big guy looming over Paul Bearer's shoulder. Mm-hmm. He started getting a bit more up front. He started talking more. Mm-hmm. Another character that nobody on this fucking planet other than Mark Calloway could have pulled off. But, he took the ball and ran with it. And next thing you know, it's another icon, in the making.
It really doesn't make sense how this character works.
Ever.
But he's an
Old West Undertaker.
So listener, he's an Old West Undertaker originally, but also kind of a wizard. He also has supernatural powers.
Yeah, well, he's a zombie Undertaker.
He's a zombie Undertaker,
but he's not.
But he can do things, and then sometimes he's controlled by an urn, and sometimes he's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And the urn would vary in size and,
He would later become a biker. At one point, he kind of worshipped Satan.
Yeah. He hung out with various white nationalists from time to time, unfortunately. He was really fond of Kid Rock. Probably still is,
I mean, come on, modern thin blue line taker.
America.
Does he have some kind of stock interest in 9-line? Because every time I see that motherfucker, he's wearing a 9-line shirt.
Yeah, he probably gets a kickback from it. Royalties.
But yeah, so we have that character. Let's talk about him and Yokozuna feuding. Because this is one of, let's get into this. Let's talk about some of the big feuds of this era.
When you talk about one of the most athletic, ginormous, tub of lard motherfuckers you're ever going to see, Yokozuna was ridiculous. He was so huge. This is a dude that was probably 6'3", 6'4", which is tall, but not gigantic, and especially 6'3" and literally 500 pounds.
Yeah.
But he could move. Cardio was surprising. Mm-hmm. And, when he wanted to, he could throw that 500 pounds on top of you, and he was as soft as a pillow. Mm-hmm. But if you pissed him off, he'd squash you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sad what happened to Yokozuna. It's just the whole his weight issues and stuff.
He basically ate himself to death.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's just no matter how large you are, the human heart's only so big.
Yep.
It's it's the size of your fist, and if you're trying to make something the size of your fist power a 500-pound plus man, that's not a proposition that can go on for long.
Yep. No, unfortunately. But, for the relatively short time he was there, he made a ridiculously big impact. I mean, the various feuds that Yokozuna had, every one of them was high profile.
Yeah.
Well,
he was such a monster heel.
But he worked with great big giant baby faces like The Undertaker, like Hulk Hogan. But he also could have tremendous matches with the quote-unquote smaller guys like Bret Hart. Bret Hart and the Yokozuna matches were incredible. The way those two could move, especially for the size difference between them, Bret Hart knew exactly how to get the most out of Yokozuna.
100%. Let's stick with Taker for a second, because this is also like a thing that becomes a recurring bit with Taker during this time, is just fighting gigantic dudes. Like, he kind of got the Hogan gimmick in a way, where the whole thing was always a monster has to fight Hulk Hogan, and in the 90s, a monster can only fight Undertaker, because he's such an overpowered character. The only way you can believe that somebody's going to beat him is somebody like a Yokozuna or like a giant Gonzalez who's like even taller than him or something.
It took Vince McMahon, from day one, Vince McMahon was very smart in how he was promoting The Undertaker. But it took him way too long to realize that he had more than just an attraction with The Undertaker. You had some wrestlers that realistically, for the most part, were only an attraction. You had guys like Andre the Giant, who I love Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was the epitome of an attraction.
I don't move.
You couldn't have big programs with him.
Yeah.
Realistically, he couldn't do promos, but damn, if people knew he was going to be there, they'd come to see him.
It's the impressive sight of seeing him. But yeah, I mean...
But
yeah.
Not much of a character.
Yeah, well, not much of a guy who's going to get on the mic and give like an impassioned promo. Also, not a workhorse. Like, he's not, he's going to come in, he's going to hit the big boot. He's gonna back you up in the corner, hit you with the ass. Like, he's not doing some real cool shit.
Taker has all of that, but he also has a character. The ability to present himself in a way that's more just, I need to see the spectacle of this guy. It was, I have come to care about what this guy has to say, what his motivations are, blah, blah, blah. And it did take Vince quite a while to realize how much of a total package he had.
People will shit on Undertaker and say that his work rate is awful, but at the same time, I will say that, like, it's the weakest tool that he has in his toolkit, but he's not terrible.
No.
Like, he's passable, but it is the weakest thing that he has, because his character, his entrance, and his ability to talk outshines what he can do in the ring. But, like, this is still a guy that can hit, like, fucking over-the-top rope dives onto the floor, and we've seen him do it.
At 6'10".
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a basketball athlete.
Booger Red could move.
Yeah.
That dude could move.
Also, during this time, we got to hit on this feud, because it's one of those weird feuds where it's, like, just at the end of the new generation, going into the Attitude Era, Undertaker versus Mankind.
Mankind was a perfect opponent. He was crazy enough that you knew anything could happen at any time.
Yeah.
And how many different feuds did Taker and Mankind have?
Well, it was one of those things where they just kept going back and forth with it. We're like, I don't know who else we're going to put you guys against. This just makes sense.
Yeah, let's find a different reason for you to hate each other now.
And again, it's one of those things, too, where they're both kind of like these weird, supernatural, dark characters.
Yep.
So it's like, well, you guys work well together. It kind of makes sense, because if we put you with other people, it's just kind of weird.
Yep. It cracks me up how many massive culmination matches those dudes managed to have through multiple feuds. Because if you think about it, the first big one was the Boiler Room. And that was the old school Mankind.
Yeah.
Different entrance music than exit music.
Ripping out the hair.
He always had to be filthy in the bowels of the building, The Boiler Room was a different concept. And, that at the time was like kind of what the two of them were known for. Little did we know, a couple years later, a little Hell in the Cell would cause that almost to be completely forgotten about.
Let's talk about this. Talk about Razor Ramon during this time. Like, he had some cool feuds. I liked him with the 1-2-3 Kid. Loved the ladder match with Shawn Michaels. Like, that is still one of those things people talk about to this day. And it's one of those things you can still look back on now, and it's still great, especially at how fresh it was at that time, where it was something where we haven't seen all the ladder spots ever.
Beyond that, it wasn't a ladder match just for the sake of insane ladder spots.
Yes.
Like there was a reason for it to be a ladder match. You know, it was the whole dispute where Shawn had never given away the belt or never lost the belt, I guess. I mean, there was reason for that match to happen. Even beyond that, you had two dudes that just, for whatever reason, had great chemistry together. So, you know, that made it fairly easy to get lost in because the two of them together just knew how to work.
Yeah, I loved watching those guys together and what they could do in the ring, and just again, I'm with you in terms of like that not just being a ladder spot fest and
Right.
seeing a lot of that stuff for the first time where it's like, oh shit, like this is incredible. Like that's always a fun thing in wrestling. You see something new,
Yeah.
because it's just like in life where it's like, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. Like
Right.
we've seen it all, and then you see something like that, and you're like, I've never seen this before.
Well,
This is
and
incredible.
it was a match that just happened to feature this stipulation where to finish it, they had to get up that ladder and get those belts down. It wasn't this like weird feeling like, okay, we're going to have this ladder match. So now you're just going to start thinking about, you know, what crazy moves they're going to do. The psychology felt different, but it was also the first one we ever saw.
Let's I want to end this on Shawn and Brett. Before we get there, can we talk Owen and Brett for a second?
Of course.
Man, so here's the deal. I've never been during the time of watching Bret Hart, I was never a Bret Hart guy.
Gotcha.
I was just never super into his style. Looking back on it, I'm a little bit more into what he does, looking through a modern lens, because at the time I didn't quite understand like work rate and stuff and what he was doing. But I also hate old man Bret, where he just bitches about everybody. But even during that time, I did appreciate the feud with him and his brother that they had.
Yeah.
And I really love how different those two guys were. We're like, Brett is very much like the serious older brother. Owen's way more the jokester, laid back, younger brother. But they were
Clown
both,
Prince.
yeah, both like terrific athletes that knew how to do their job. And them working against each other, like in that match, was it SummerSlam where they went against each other in the cage? Like that was incredible.
I'm trying to remember which match of theirs, because they had multiple matches throughout several different series. One of the pay-per-views started with Brett losing to Owen and then winning the world title at the end of it. So I remember that. But yeah, I mean, the cage match they had was awesome. It just, Owen was good because he could adapt what he was doing. And same thing with Brett. Both of them could adapt what they were doing to whoever they were in the ring with.
Yes.
If they needed to have a brawl-heavy, few scientific move match, they could do it. And especially Owen, if they needed to have a high-flying match, Owen could do whatever you needed him to do.
Right. Yeah. Owen was definitely like that classic New Japan type cruiserweight type dude where it's like, do you need him to chain wrestle? He can chain wrestle.
Right.
Do you need him to do high flying spots? He can do that as well. But then at the same time, he also like had this personality to him that was so much different from Brett. Brett's very stoic. Owen's whiny.
Yep.
You know, and he really did play that like whiny younger brother so well.
He was the baby brother.
Yeah.
He was the baby brother.
Yeah.
What's funny about Owen is for a hot second when he very, very first popped up and I was like a younger kid, the Blue Blazer was my favorite wrestler.
Oh, really?
Oh, God. He was I always liked the masked wrestlers. And he was one of the first masked high flyers that I was there for his initial push. You know, when he first, like WrestleMania 5 era, he was one of my favorite wrestlers. He did the moonsault. It was awesome. He had a great spot where he'd Irish whip a guy into the corner, into the turnbuckle, and as the guy came back, he'd catch him in a belly-to-belly suplex. That was one of my favorite spots back then.
Owen Hart's death might be, I don't know if it's the saddest thing ever in wrestling, but it's top 5.
Yep.
And I still don't understand. Well, I do and I don't. As a human being that has empathy for others, I don't understand how Vince McMahon let that pay-per-view go on after fucking Owen Hart fell in front of an entire arena full of people and died.
Right. Right. I would not have ever wanted to have been in that situation. Because also, I mean, realistically, that was a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. If he would have decided to end it, there would have been plenty of people bitching about that. That was an unwinnable situation, no matter what choice they made once that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to give people refunds and stuff, but I'm still trying to figure out, like, how do you go out there after that if you're a performer?
Yes, definitely.
And even
for
like,
the performers.
and even as like a fan, I don't even know if I could still sit in the stands.
And it's like, I don't know what would be like. I'm trying to think from a trauma aspect.
Maybe
that
like
happening and then having to walk immediately out of the building and having nothing else to think about other than what you had just seen happen in front of you, or you have that buffer of like they get him out of the way, rest in peace, and like there's something else there to distract. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know which of those would have been worse in my brain.
Well, this is like the pro wrestling version of the Mar Hamlin thing, where like the game between the Bengals and the Bills, where he got hit and it had the heart attack on the field and died, and then like they didn't know what to do, and then the NFL had like called down the field like, hey, we're gonna do warm ups and we're gonna start planning it, and then like the coaches for both the Bills and the Bengals were like, we're not fucking doing this. Yep. We don't care what you say.
Yep.
And then they were like, all right, well, but playoffs, and they were like, you got like 300-pound men crying right now. Like, we're not playing this fucking game.
Yep. Fuck off.
You know, figure it out.
Yep.
You guys make enough millions of dollars. Figure it out.
Yep.
So yeah,
that's also, I mean, at least in the States, that's the only thing I can think of ever really happening during a show like that.
Yeah, that I can think, you know, and it is kind of crazy to think of too, where like, as far as like,
there's been some close calls.
Obviously there's been some close calls, and we've seen people get injured. Like I can think of like that AEW pay-per-view in our watching where like Matt Hardy jumped off a fucking ladder or something against Sammy Guevara and banged his head off the ground. It was very obvious he was concussed, and they were like,
well, the Giant getting dropped on his fucking neck by Kevin Nash.
That was nasty.
Him. Yeah. Poor Buff Bagwell getting spiked doing that bulldog thing against the Steiners. I mean, we were watching live for both of those, and I remember sitting there like, we're sitting, smoking weed, watching Buff Bagwell getting put on a bodyboard, backboard, whatever it's called, and immobilized, and like all the wrestlers are around the ring, like kind of just worriedly watching. And I mean, we're at home drawn into it. Like that, you know, I'm surprised worse shit hasn't happened.
Yeah, I'm with you. It is crazy, like, especially with like pro wrestling, where like there's a lot of stuff where people could get paralyzed or die on a nightly basis, and
easily,
and it doesn't happen. Like I see people can take Canadian destroyers and stuff for like even just a simple pile driver, and I get worried. I'm like, that could go really bad,
right?
You know, and I still can't believe we haven't seen somebody die from a death match yet, especially with the sheer number of them that are happening, or people who aren't taking proper safety precautions. Like, I mean, we got close that one time at like CZW. It's not a tournament of death or whatever, but whatever it was, we're like fucking MDK, Nick Gage about bled out and died, and they had to airlift him out of a field. And it's just like, you know, but yet he didn't die. He's, you know, but I can't believe like nobody has like died from getting cut from a scissor board yet, or like even later when like he almost killed David Arquette, where they had he like cut
sliced his jugular with a piece of a light tube.
Like I just think at some point somebody's gonna die.
And
it worries me, and it worries me a lot.
Yeah, like out of all the deathmatch stuff that I've seen, which admittedly is not a whole heck of a lot, it is not my jam. I laughed my ass off back in the day when the ICP Stranglemania tapes came out.
Oh, those
and it was
rocked.
the IWA Japan King of the Deathmatch tournament.
Lama
Cactus Jack and
Cactus Sack.
fucking
Drunk Terry Funk.
Cactus Jack and Terry Funk, and it wasn't Abdullah the Butcher on that. It was the Headhunters, the
Ponderosa
twins.
and Sweden House.
But that video cracked me the fuck up. But after that, every other death match, anything I've ever seen, I just cannot get into. It's just too much glass, and it just not my thing.
I like some deathmatch stuff. I like some deathmatch wrestlers. Like I love Matt Tremont. Like that dude is great. In my mind, he's like a very much like a modern Terry Funk, Cactus Jack, Abdullah the Butcher, Bruce Birch type character, where like he is a legit tough guy that gets hit with all this crazy shit, and but he also has like a character and he can talk on the mic and stuff like that. I'm invested in him, but on the whole, I'm like, there's a bunch of people that are doing it where it's just like, this is just kind of your thing, is like you just fall down and get cut, and I'm like,
right.
I'm not super into your character, what you're doing. For some people, it's a cheat code to get in the door in a way, because like if you're willing to do it, like you can get on the bigger cards faster. You can get in stuff like GCW, and it's worked out for people like Akira, who that guy's making a lot of moves right now. What he's doing MLW, and I think he's over in TNA now. Like he's starting to level up.
Gotcha.
And starting to go through things. And yeah, man, like I don't know. I don't like. Here's the deal. I enjoy deathmatch on some level. For me, it's the tournaments and stuff. It's hard to keep my attention because it's the same spots over and over.
Right.
But that's my complaint about all pro wrestling. When I go to see pro wrestling live or on a TV show, I want to see the circus. I want to see the acrobats. I want to see the lions. I want to see the clowns. So I want to see a big guy match. I want to see sweaty meaty men slapping meat, and then I want to see a luchador match and a cruiserweight match, and then I want to see a hardcore match. I want to see those different stuff.
Want to see somebody that is creative, and I understand that to an extent all pro wrestlers are going to be creative. What I mean is, if you watch a fucking Young Bucks match, you can damn near time out when every single spot of theirs is going to happen.
I've been watching the same PWG match since 2010.
Oh my God. Yes, I understand it. Rope, look, right about here, he's going to stand on his hands and trap the opponent's head between his ankles while he's standing on the apron, and he's going to come through and he's going to super kick him. Shocker. Oh, it's like clockwork. It's the same match over and over and over.
It's super cool if you've never seen it before.
Exactly.
Like if you're like my wife and it's like, hey, check this out, and she can appreciate like guys doing flippy floppy shit.
The next week, if they wrestle, it's going to be the same thing.
They're still doing flippy floppy shit.
It's the exact same.
Let's transition back from flippy floppy shit to one more thing before we leave the new generation.
Mm-hmm.
Brett versus Sean.
Yeah.
And I would also like to throw in this here. This is when I do like Brett. Brett versus Diesel is part of this feud as well,
right?
Because we get that beforehand. This is one of the times where like Kevin Nash was actually interesting to watch wrestle, because again, to your point, Bret Hart could do anything, and Bret Hart is so good at being in a David and Goliath.
He drug a good match out of that big Goliath.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Yeah. Kevin Nash was always a great character. No matter Diesel. Let me rephrase that. He wasn't always a great character. Oz was terrible, but that wasn't his fault. How the hell are you supposed to do Oz, a 7-foot wizard with a stupid ass green fake head, and it was absurd.
Vice is doing the series right now where they're doing the Who Killed Nitro series. They just released.
Who Killed WCW?
Who Killed WCW. They just released it on a YouTube. It's like 45 minutes long, and they interview Kevin Nash, and he's talking about the Oz gimmick, and he's like, Dusty Rhodes comes up to me and goes, "You're gonna be Oz, baby," and I said, Dusty, Oz isn't the wizard; it's the place people from. Yeah, Oz.
Yeah.
It's like, hell yeah, dude.
But he had the wizard with him.
Yeah.
His manager.
He's just green.
It was absurd. But yeah, Kevin Nash, I mean, the Diesel character was cool.
Big Daddy cool.
When he first started out just being the imposing dude standing behind Shawn Michaels.
Wearing glasses.
He was a big, imposing looking dude.
He's a 7-foot tall dude that's legit over 300 pounds.
And you can't teach that.
You can't teach that.
But yeah, I mean, Brett had some great matches with him. Once he and Sean started, actually having interactions together, same thing. Shawn had good matches with Diesel. It was interesting.
The Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart thing, we got to get a movie for this someday, right? Or like a TV series or something.
I don't
Because
know. I mean,
it's
good
just,
God.
it's such a crazy story.
It is a crazy story, but it's also a crazy story that's been told over and over and over. I mean, good God. I can't think of how many times I've seen some random, Montreal Screwjob expose, Montreal Screwjob this. I mean, it was huge. It was absolutely huge. But good God, ever since, Vince McMahon became Mr. McMahon, that has been in the forefront of everything.
Well, here's the deal, because not all of the people that listen to the podcast are wrestling fans. We got to revisit the Montreal Screwjob.
Oh God.
All right, let's keep it to let's do this. Let's keep it to the facts and just try to get through it. So the Montreal Screwjob is basically what happened, listener, is there was this ongoing back and forth feud both in reality and in the ring between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Bret Hart comes from a old school Canadian wrestling family. Bret Hart grew up in wrestling. He's very stoic, this is the way things are done, Shawn Michaels is very much, he was in the fucking Rockers. He's very much like a Motley Crue type dude who's like, rocking all day, partying every night, but also putting on the best matches on the card. A great looking dude, incredibly charismatic. He can be a good guy, he can be a bad guy. And so these two guys are just so opposite, but now they have to work together.
Diametrically opposed.
And it turns into fireworks both in the ring as a work and then backstage as a shoot. These motherfuckers don't like each other.
Period.
And so it comes to the point where like Bret Hart's like, I'm going to leave the company and get out of here. Or he didn't want to drop the belt. Was he leaving the company at the time before? He wasn't going to WCW yet, was he? Or was he going to WCW? Oh yeah, because that was the deal. It was he had signed some ridiculous contract with the WWE, and then Vince McMahon. It was like a deal, listener, where like Bret Hart had signed like a 20-year contract with the WWE or something ridiculous.
Yep.
And Vince McMahon was having money problems during this time in the New Generation.
Or so he claimed.
Because it was just like, this really wasn't working. Again, it was between these two boom periods of the 80s wrestling, the rock and wrestling with Hogan, and the Attitude Era. The New Generation was just dwindling and shrinking in the WWF. And so Vince says, hey, I can't afford to pay this contract. Can we do something else? That's when WCW swoops in with Turner Money and they go, we can pay you this. And so Bret's going to leave, but Bret has the belt. Now, this is a problem with pro wrestling. You can't have the champion leave with the belt. And they say, you got to drop the belt before you leave. This is just what you do in a pro wrestling territory.
And Bret Hart was willing to drop the belt.
But
Bret Hart did not want to lose the belt in Canada, his home country, and he did not want to lose the belt to Shawn Michaels. He was willing to lose the belt, supposedly, to any other wrestler. He was not willing to lose the belt to Shawn Michaels. And Vince McMahon had to have Bret Hart lose the title to Shawn Michaels in his head. He, for whatever reason, thought the only way that it would be legitimate for Shawn to have the belt is if Shawn took the belt from Bret.
yeah, which is an interesting concept because
Shawn Michaels was one of the worst drawing WWF champions of all time.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's just like trying to look at it and being like, did this have to happen or not? And then it's like, whose fault is this? Like, is it Bret's for not doing business? Is it the fault of Vince for not being like, okay, just drop it to the fucking Undertaker and then Taker will drop it to Shawn next week, like just cutting the losses on it? Or was it like a dick measuring contest between the two of them? And then also just the fact that Shawn Michaels was just an irritating drug addict at the time that was just a total piece of shit.
I guarantee all of the above.
Yeah.
I guarantee all of the above. But as it turned out, Bret wasn't willing to lose the belt to Shawn, so they basically concocted a part where partway through the match, Shawn Michaels was supposed to put Bret Hart's finishing move on Bret Hart as a spot, and Bret Hart was going to escape from it, and the match was going to continue, except when Shawn put that move on Bret, the second he, quote-unquote, locked in the move, the referee who was in on it called for the bell, said that Bret Hart had submitted, and boom, Shawn Michaels has won the title.
And shit got real.
Bret threw a fit, spit perfectly. The most well-aimed loogie I've ever seen in my life.
I've never seen a better spit than that. It
Right
really,
in Vince McMahon's eye.
I mean,
from a distance.
It's incredible.
Perfect.
It drills him. It's on par with. Do you remember that WWE ECW pay-per-view they did with a one-night stand where Cena comes out and Cena throws the T-shirt in the crowd, and then the dude in the crowd chucks the T-shirt back and it lands on the top rope perfectly, and it's just like, oh, like
Yep.
that loogie is that. Where it's just like, how did you nail that?
Bam! Right in his eye. It was beautiful. Gets down, trashes the ringside area, smashes all the television monitors, just goes nuts. Apparently, later that evening, went backstage, got a shower. Vince McMahon was in the locker room waiting for him when he got out of the shower. He calmly sat down, put his clothes on, stood up, knocked Vince McMahon out, and left.
It's like a fucking country song, bro.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. You punching out your time
Beautiful.
card, punching out your boss.
And apparently, Bret Hart is not the only Hart family member who is a very well accomplished aim master when it comes to spitting loogies. As Vince was walking down the hallway, apparently he and his entire entourage was getting showered by the Hart family that was backstage.
Wow.
Brutal. It's what you get.
That's what happens.
Yep.
Well, look, man, I think this is going to be a good setup for the Attitude Era. Before we get there, we're going to have to talk Nitro. Is there anything else you want to say about the new generation before we eject into WCW Nitro?
I'm glad the new generation didn't last very long.
It's really fucking rough.
Yep.
There's not a lot of highlights in the new generation. Nope. It's a lot of bad. It's one of those things where, like, now you can go back and look at it, like kind of we did, where it's like, hey, you got Scott Hall, you got Kevin Nash, you got Bret Hart, you got
Lex Luger.
Yeah, you got Golddust.
The Narcissist.
You got Taker. Like, there's some good, but man, it is just filled with bullshit. Just
bloatware.
Bad bullshit.
It was bloatware.
Yeah. So this takes us over to WCW then at this time.
So Raw was live on the USA Network. A new vice president got promoted, Mr. Eric Bischoff, who was a third string C-level cheeseball wannabe game show host looking motherfucker doing one of the syndicated shows that all of a sudden got promoted from the outhouse to the fucking penthouse, became vice president of the damn company, and had interesting ideas.
I think we need to talk about this at this time before. So Nitro starts in 93. But there's kind of the same way we talked about. There was the 80s version of WWE where it was like the Rock and Wrestling. It was Hogan. It was MTV. It was all the celebrity stuff. NWA exists in the 80s, and then it turns into WCW in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's a very different vibe of what's happening here. So this is like a Southern Rasslin promotion. It's on TBS, which is out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Superstation.
Thanks to Ted Turner. Thank you, Ted. But their whole... So whereas like Vince McMahon's whole idea was like the crowd goes home happy every night because the good guy American hero Hulk Hogan wins. Southern Wrestling is not based on this, especially NWA. It's during this time, it's way more of like... It's the Horsemen, it's the bad guys winning the belt, it's Dusty Rhodes getting beat up, it's people getting fucked up, and then they would capture the title eventually.
But that was very different from what was going on in WCW at that time. The Blood and Guts, Southern Wrestling, Crockett Promotions, NWA, all that shit changed in like 88,
yes.
89.
Well, and this gets into my favorite era of WCW, which is late 80s, early 90s WCW, where there is a lot of bad gimmicks, but we also get Big Van Vader. We get Ron Simmons as world champion.
We do. But that whole Jim Herd era, unfortunately, is entirely whatever jackass was in charge at that moment trying to copy Vince McMahon.
Yeah, and it's weird because the same way I just talked about the new gym with like there's a few highlights. it's that exact same thing. We're like, you got Vader, you got Ron Simmons, you got Cactus Jack, you got Sting. And then it just kind of, and the Horsemen are floating around.
Like, you hit the mid card and below, and it's like, oh.
You got fucking Ice Train.
Yeah.
It's rough.
It's like garbage.
It's a rough time. The Steiners are floating there somewhere.
And the people that they do have are almost like gems that they haven't cut. They have no idea what they've got. Cactus Jack, in that era, was young, creative, willing
to do anything.
But good God, they had no idea how to use him. They didn't trust him to come up with his own stuff. And the stuff they were giving him was hot garbage.
Oh, those terrible vignettes of the Lost in Cleveland stuff where Cactus Jack has amnesia.
And doesn't recognize his wife. And it just,
it's so bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it was so cheesy.
And it's so weird. So we go from like Blood and Gut in the 80s with the NWA. We get the weird transition period in the late 80s, early 90s. And then in 93, we get coming in Eric Bischoff, Nitro. And there's a switch. So like Bischoff talked about like doing the thing where like he would work out of, when he first came in, and not for Nitro, but just like coming in and starting to work out of like Disney World. So we always had like fresh people and fresh eyes on the product. So even though the wrestling was shitty, people were still popping.
Right.
And then getting the investment to do Nitro where it's like, hey, Ted, Raw's doing this. And Ted Turner's like, I want to be number one. It's like, well, if you want to be number one, you got to give me, time on Monday night. And Ted Turner's like, all right, here you go. Here's 2 hours. Make it happen.
Well, 1 hour.
Oh, sorry. 1 hour for the first one.
Nitro was only an hour at first, but so was Raw.
Yeah.
Raw originally was a 1 hour program. What was cool is Ted Turner wanted to compete. And Ted Turner had very deep pockets.
And he opened the checkbook and signed Hulk Hogan.
One, he owned the television. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like he had to shop the shit around. He owned the damn network. So he said, hey, all right, we're going prime time. We're going to compete with Vince. You get an hour every Monday night. Oh, and you're going to go live. Eric Bischoff was audacious. Mm-hmm. He was willing to give it a shot. At the very start, when he was 100% behind the scenes, he knew how to make it look good. He was a good sales guy. Mm-hmm. Eric Bischoff,
100%.
He was a fantastic salesman.
Not a creative genius, but he's got a big smile.
And he
can shovel bullshit.
And he can smell bullshit. Mm-hmm. Eric Bischoff is a sharp tack. Mm-hmm. He recognizes talent. I don't know that he's good at producing, but he's got a good eye. He sees something he likes, and he, for whatever reason, knows that it's going to work. The Mall of America was a great way to get that show off the ground.
What an amazing first show.
It looked fantastic.
So, listener, literally for the first episode of Monday Night Nitro, they filmed it from the Mall of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it's if you've never been to the Mall of America, it's a multi-tiered, gigantic mall.
Largest mall in America.
So people are like, not only are people surrounding the ring, but people are like watching it on multiple balcony tiers that are like, 4 or 5 stories in the air.
At least.
It's insane.
There's escalators going up and down that are packed with people.
Yeah, there's elevators that are moving in the background.
It was an awesome looking show.
They kicked the show off with Brian Pillman versus Jushin Thunder Liger.
Boom.
Which, holy shit.
Yep.
The one of the best American cruiserweights versus one of the best fucking Japanese wrestlers of all time, who has my favorite mask of all time.
And what was really brilliant about that, Eric Bischoff right away started firing shots. What was one of the first shockers of any of that bullshit on the very first Nitro? Mm-hmm. Out comes Lex fucking Luger.
Well, it established the idea anything can happen anytime.
In the very first episode.
Yes. Which was an incredibly smart thing to do. The idea that anybody could show up, anything could happen. It's live. Who knows what will happen on this live TV show?
That in and of itself set the stage. From that moment on, they were fighting. They were putting up a fight. I think for quite a while there at the beginning, Raw was still beating them in the ratings, but as soon as Nitro started, people started talking about it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and this too also signifies like a change for WCW because like even though we do get Nitro, we're still stuck in this weird cartoony era of WC because as soon as they bring in Hogan, they just start doing the stuff that we'd kind of seen before in WWE where it's like...
Because it was the only shit Hogan knew.
Yeah. It's like, all right, well, we eventually...
This has always worked, brother.
First things first, we kill off Ric Flair, and then you just feed me supersized heels. And that's how we get the Dungeon of Doom, which is one of the shittiest stables in the history of professional wrestling.
And it was Kevin Sullivan, who has such a smart brain for wrestling. How the fuck was the Dungeon of Doom him? It was ridiculous.
It's terrible. It's god awful. And we suffer through that for like well over a year of just Hulk Hogan being fed shitty, cartoony fucking wrestlers.
Crap.
And it's awful. But at the same time, like this is going on, like the undercard is bubbling because the cruiserweights are happening. And this is something that's very innovative for American audiences during this time is like, we're starting to see people that can put on wrestling matches. Like we've seen it with like Brett and Shawn, but to be able to start seeing like people like Rey Mysterio Jr. and starting to bring in the Lucha stuff and Eddie Guerrero and all that.
They started popping up later though. Because realistically, at the time, it wasn't the cruiserweights. When Nitro first started out, I mean, it was the Jushin Thunder Ligers, it was the Brian Pillmans, it was Brad Armstrong, and it was the light heavyweight division. It was quite a bit later. The NWO was pretty much already starting to show up when the cruiserweights really started getting pushed. Because I'm watching all of that right now. That's kind of what's happening. WCW always focused the lighter weight, more athletic wrestlers for sure. But the cruiserweights, Nitro was going for a little bit before the cruiserweights started to really blow up.
Well, I'm painting with a broad brush here
Yep.
as we lay in these early years.
Yep.
But yeah.
Eric knew what talent to steal.
Yeah, like, and it was the thing too, where like he, with filling that time, and especially as they expanded that time slot, it was like, all right, we got to get some stuff in here. It's not just Hogan and the big guys stinking it up. Like, we got to have some actual wrestling on the show that's going to keep around. We don't really got to give them much mic time, but we got to have people that can actually work.
Yeah, and Eric wasn't afraid to bring in ex-WWF guys. Mm-hmm. He knew that they knew television. He knew that they knew how to promote themselves, if nothing else. Hulk Hogan was a really, really, really important thing for WCW to pick up, even though at the time I could give a shit about Hulk Hogan.
Same.
He did bring a lot of eyeballs that otherwise wouldn't have paid attention to World Championship Wrestling. But then they picked up Randy Savage, which I think was equally big.
Yeah, same. And it was cheaper for him to do. Well, and then they also got that Slim Jim contract along with it.
Which paid big bucks.
Yeah.
Big bucks.
But as far as if my choices are, would you like to watch a Hulk Hogan match or a Randy Savage match?
Randy Savage all
day,
long.
every day. Not even a question. Not even a question.
And Randy was so much less selfish of a worker. Randy would do a job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Randy was the one to give and take, as opposed to Hogan.
Yep.
For me, the jumping, this is the ultimate jumping the shark mirror for me, and I'm honestly surprised this wasn't the thing that made WCW completely bottom out, because soon after this we get the NWO, but the entire Dungeon of Doom, WCW Uncensored 1996 main event where they're in the Doomsday Cage, which is a triple cage.
Ugh.
It's Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, two guys, versus Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan, Lex Luger, the Barbarian, Ming, Z Gangster, who you might know as
Zeus.
Yeah, Zeus, or Tiny Lister from he was Debo in Friday. And then the Ultimate Solution, who's this guy called Jeep Swanson. Fun fact about the Ultimate Solution, his original name was The Final Solution, but then somebody was like, that was what the Holocaust was called. And they were like, he's now the Ultimate Solution.
We shouldn't call him
We shouldn't call him the Holocaust, right? Yeah, don't call him the Holocaust.
Not smart.
Yeah, back off that. But yes, it leads to Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan literally beating 8 men in a triple cage. This is fucking dog shit.
Horse shit mixed with dog shit.
Yeah, kind of a ground chuck of shit.
And, I hated it. I remember watching it going, what the actual fuck? And this is from the same company that had a lot of what the actual fuck moments. Abdullah the Butcher getting fucking electrocuted
In the electric
just
chair.
absurd.
Yeah.
Even though that, if I'm not mistaken, that's the same match that has one of my favorite moments of all time with the Great Muta using his mist to put out the fire on the cage.
2 different matches, but I'm with you.
Same cage.
Same cage, Thunderdome cage.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was the Thunderdome cage. They used it at multiple Halloween Havocs. The one where Muta puts out the mist is with the mist is the fire that occurs. It's Flair and Sting versus Funk and Muta in the Thunderdome.
Man, that was fucking hilarious.
And then the one with Abby was a 5-on-5, which has
the Steiners
are in it.
Yeah.
Sting's in it, and fucking
Yeah.
Cactus Jack's. It's a great match. Go back and watch that. That thing's
Wrestle
awesome.
crap.
Yeah, totally good. Yeah, and also, is there anything better than like a 400-pound wiggly jiggly Abdul the Butcher faking being electrocuted?
When they threw the switch.
Yeah, they threw it up, they threw it down, they threw it again. He just keeps shaking. It doesn't matter. It's on, it's off. Abby's selling the chair.
But no, I mean that should have been the end of things. But shortly thereafter, Vince McMahon starts to lose control of some of his main event talent, and Scott Hall comes wandering through the door, and shit changed real quick.
Yeah, and this is where we get into this, where we start to see the change in wrestling, where it starts getting real. Like we start getting into
It starts to feel much more real.
Yeah, quote unquote real. So like you get Scott Hall showing up at not as Razor Ramon, just as Scott Hall, just your normal 6'7", 285-pound dude, not wearing a shirt, wearing a jean vest.
So 1 week on television, he's on WWF, and he's wearing the vest and the gold around his neck, and he's Razor Ramon.
He's flipping the toothpick.
And then a couple weeks later, if you're watching Monday Nitro, there's a match happening between Brian Enos and who the fuck was he wrestling? I'm surprised I even remember Brian Enos.
Was it Roadblock?
But it was a match that was inconsequential in the grand scheme of things between 2 mid-card guys, and all of a sudden in the background you see fans starting to react to something, and then they cut to a different camera angle, and it's a real wide shot, hard cam, ring is front and center, but you can see a big chunk of the crowd behind, and you start to see this real tall dude with slick back hair pulled back into a ponytail, no shirt, with a blue jean vest, making his way through the crowd. And the next thing you know, this dude's jumped the rail and is coming in, and it's Razor Ramon, as far as you can tell.
Right.
He's got the toothpick behind the ear, and he grabs the mic and interrupts the match and starts cutting a promo. Hey, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
How poetic.
Never says his name.
Yep.
But talks just like Razor. Looks pretty much like Razor in street clothes.
Plants the seed. Ask a question, doesn't give an answer.
And teases that he's not the only one. It catches fire. It catches interest immediately. That's all anybody's talking about.
Well, it's a mystery.
And what's going to happen?
Yeah, what's next? And then
It's
Kevin
live
Nash shows up.
television. You never know what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, fucking Diesel's there. And holy shit, WWF's losing control.
Who else is coming over? Who else is going to make the jump?
Right.
And this then leads into the whole thing where they're going to go to a pay-per-view and there's a third man. There's a third guy, but they don't tell you who it is. And there was talk of it being Sting. And then Eric Bischoff says that Hogan calls him up and Hogan goes, hey, who's the third man? And like Bischoff kind of waffles and tell him Sting. He's like, well, we're thinking Sting. And he's like, you're looking at him. And Bischoff's like, oh my God, yes.
Apparently, it was suggested fairly early on to Hulk.
And he said no.
And he said hell no. He had absolutely no interest in it. It wasn't going to work, blah, blah, blah. And then Scott Hall strode up and started running his dick liquor. Mm-hmm. And then Kevin Nash strode up. And then all of a sudden, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were the two hottest prospects. It was all anybody was talking about anywhere. And, well, damn, they weren't talking about Hulk Hogan anymore. Mm-hmm. He can't have that. Not with his fucking ego. All of a sudden, he was interested.
And that's what we get.
Sting had already agreed to be the third man.
Yeah.
And Hulk was like, oh, no, I'll do it. I'm not a huge Hulk Hogan fan, if you can't tell.
I'm not either. It would have worked with Sting, yes, but does it work better with Hogan? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
Hollywood Hulk Hogan was a fucking awesome heel.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's, we never really saw Sting heel before, and I don't know if we ever. I mean, we've seen sort of Sting heel like in TNA and shit, and then he was like kind of in the Wolfpack, but he's kind of like Ricky Steamboat. Can you really cheer against Sting?
Sting was a heel way back. The Blade Runners were heels. When it was Sting and The Rock.
The
Ultimate Warrior.
The Dingo Warrior.
Dingo Warrior, Jim Hellwig. When they were a tag team, they were like wannabe Road Warriors. Mm-hmm. They were heels. That's the only time I remember Sting ever being a heel. I never watched TNA.
Yeah. Sting was like, I don't know, it was, again, it's like one of those things where it's like, how do you cheer against Sting?
Right.
It's like cheering against Captain America, even if he is the bad guy. I really can't.
And he was the franchise WCW guy.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knew him as WCW.
But, and it would have been good. But the fact that it was Hulk Hogan, the ultimate good guy, the always good guy.
Well, and you absolutely did not expect it. That leg drop was, like, even though Bobby Heenan fucking called it as he's coming down, hey, is he the third man?
Well, and the funny part about that is, too, is, like, people say that, some people say Heenan ruined the surprise, but, like, that was a classic Bobby Heenan thing to do, to talk shit on Hogan to plant seed it down.
Always.
And it never paid off for
And one
Bobby.
of my favorite fucking things about it is after that, for the next months and months and months, Heenan's, I've been telling you for years.
Yeah.
For years I've been telling you.
This guy's a piece of shit.
I told you all along.
Why is nobody listening to me?
And it absolutely vindicated Bobby Heenan. All those fucking years. It's the brain.
Shout out to the brain.
Rest in peace, brother.
Shout out to the brain.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, R.I.P. to a real one. But
it was fucking great.
Yeah, it's 100% great.
And it blew the world up of wrestling. Like, the Hulk Hogan dropped that leg, and WCW didn't look back.
So we get that in 1996, and we also get at this time the debut of Goldberg.
Yeah, Goldberg came around quite a bit later. Goldberg shows up 97.
Yeah, he's like late 96, early 97.
I think his premiere was like October of 97, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, let's do this, because I got 96 in my notes. When did Goldberg...
Because he showed up very first time you see him, him against Hugh Morris.
You were right. September 22nd, 1997.
Thank you.
Yeah. You beat ChatGPT.
I've been watching the shit. And at first, he's just a nondescript wrestler that, the first time you see him, he's already standing there in the ring. The announcers are not hyping him up. They're not putting him down. They're like, oh, this guy looks like he could be impressive. But nobody knew what to do. He spiked the shit out of Hugh Morris, pinned him, and leaves. Not a hell of a lot of fanfare. They did that for 3 or 4 weeks in a row. He'd just show up, and every time he'd be a little bit more explosive, and they'd be a little bit more like, wow, this guy's really starting to impress.
It was a bit of a slow burn.
Yeah. But then they started trying to interview him, and he would just walk past whatever interviewer, and they're like, what's he got to hide? Why won't he talk? But like trying to be all like a mystery about it. But then they started being like, oh, well, he talks with his actions in the ring. But yeah.
Which is a great thing to do for a guy that can't talk and doesn't have a manager.
Green as fuck. Super green.
Yeah.
But physically impressive.
Physically impressive. Yeah, the Goldberg character was interesting to watch, like, percolate over time and, like, build, into what he eventually turns into and how huge he gets. But, yeah, just at first, you're right. He is, like, it was just kind of, like, you just saw every just gain a little bit. But at first, it's nothing. Like, he's just a random mid-card guy that's wearing black trunks.
Yep. They made sure to slowly bring him on, and once the streak got to a healthy number, they started bringing attention to it. Like, they did a good job with him at first.
So it's kind of crazy to think about, like, during this time of, like, we talked about what WWE was doing at this time, and now what Nitro is doing with the NWO. Can we just talk about the NWO expanding beyond the original core 3 members and what this thing turns into?
Yeah, I mean, if a little bit of something's good, a whole bunch of it's got to be great, right? Isn't that how it works? They turned what was a good thing, every couple weeks, some surprise new member would show up. And at first, for the most part, it was quality. Ted DiBiase was great. Six showing up was great. Like, the additions made sense. Even when they first brought in Vincent, which was, good old Virgil, you knew why he was there, because Ted DiBiase was already there.
Right.
But good God, they just kept adding and adding and adding and adding and diluting. It got ridiculous.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where they just kept, like, building this thing, and it was just like, okay, there's no longer anything special to this, because now it's basically half your roster's in this thing.
Well,
like,
and
everybody's wearing a black t-shirt that says NWA. There's like 20 guys in the ring.
Eric Bischoff insists that the whole point of it was that they wanted to have basically a fucking brand split. Mm-hmm. There was going to be 2 different shows. One of them was going to be, NWO TV. So he needed a bunch of people, so he had enough people to do a brand split. But it just diluted everything.
What do you think about Sting's character during this time in his transition to becoming a Crow Sting?
It was awesome.
Yeah, I felt like that was the direction the Sting character needed to go in, where it became like the 80s and then early 90s Sting, the surfer Sting, had just overstayed its welcome, and it was just like, what else can you say? There's nothing left to be said.
He needed a change, and it just the whole thought of one of your top guys, pay wise, prestige wise, the patience to go a whole year without him talking, without him really wrestling. Like, he shows up a bunch, makes appearances, but like, you're not getting much out of him for what you're spending.
Right.
Even though what you're getting out of him is fucking huge.
It's the slowest of the burns. It's just Sting, like, every week appearing at the top of an arena and
people
staring.
Losing their fucking minds.
Yeah.
Like, losing their minds, and the wrestlers reacting appropriately. It was just wild, but the confidence, not even confidence,
the trust,
man, for what they were spending for him, for him to do as little as they kept themselves to having him do. It was great.
Well, and it's also a thing too where I see where you're coming from here. Where like if it was like an injury angle, this would be a way more easier thing to digest. Where it's like, hey man, he blew out his knee, he can't do anything.
It was none of that.
We're gonna keep him in the rafters for 9 months.
It was like
it's
they
not that
just
at
were
all.
like, no, like
He doesn't talk, he doesn't touch. He just
Period.
observes.
just shows up and looks, and just it was awesome. It was awesome. Like one of my favorite character builds ever.
I think it also helped to build like the idea of the story of like what had happened was so horrific and bad with the NWO that it made Sting evolve and change as a person. And that also put the importance on what had happened, where it was like, this man has changed his entire outlook. Like, he's no longer like, woo, and like yelling and like being from Venice Beach and flexing and wearing like neon makeup and tights. Now he's like wearing a fucking black duster and he's depressed.
And for the most part, the Scorpion Deathlock is no more. All of a sudden, he's got this Scorpion Death Drop reverse DDT that you've never seen him use before. But for whatever reason, the second you see him do it, it's like, that's it. That's the move.
Yeah.
Drop him on the back of the head. It was fucking awesome.
It's like a weird reverse DDT.
It was great.
Yeah.
Like, you had never seen him use that, but the second you saw him do it, you knew nobody was getting up. You know, It was fucking awesome.
Well, you got to go away and learn a new hold.
Got to go.
Got to learn a new hold. And he
Fuck,
did.
it was great.
It was awesome.
The hair grew out. Let it go back to its natural color. Yeah. And all Scott Hall's idea.
Yeah. Well, all right. So while we're in this era, can we talk cruiserweights now?
Absolutely.
All right. I think this is one of the biggest things WCW did. It was great. It was just something that WWF never really touched.
Ever.
WWE really touched.
Vince didn't recognize the value in it.
Yeah. Which is crazy because, again, this goes back to my opinion of the circus where it's like, I want to see the acrobats.
Man.
Like, if you have a bunch of 250-pound dudes, they can't do fucking moonsaults. Most of them can.
Nope.
Every once in a while, you get a Vader or a Bam Bigelow. But on the whole, if you got some big guys, they're not doing cool gymnastics, aerial shit. And these guys can.
The other thing that I really, 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 really liked about WCW with the cruiserweights is the diversity in the cruiserweights. And, man, like an actual sports broadcast.
Yes.
What would happen
would they
when
bring
the
in Mike
cruiserweights
Tenay?
would show up?
Yeah.
The fucking Professor Mike Tenay.
Yeah.
And would immediately start to tell you everything you needed to know about these two weird Mexican dudes that you've never seen before.
This dude was Google before Google.
All of a sudden, you know where they're from.
Yep.
Who their father was.
Who trained them.
Like, and just...
what belts they've held.
It was great.
And then also on top of that, like saying shit and like, you know, it's like, that's not, you know, that's a Hurricane Rana. Like
yes.
that's not a...
He used the Spanish names for the moves, what they would have been called in Mexico, Tope con Hilo, whatever, you know, and like to the point where you knew those terms.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. And I also like, again, with you talking about the diversity of the cruiserweights, like you had people like Chris Jericho, who's kind of more like a traditional like rock and roll babyface. And then you would have somebody like Dean Malenko, who his whole gimmick is he knows 1,000 holds.
Right.
This man, he lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes wrestling, and he's just going to turn you into a pretzel. And then you got Eddie Guerrero, who sometimes is a good guy, but usually a piece of shit heel that loves being a piece of shit heel, and also can have banger after banger of a match.
And the funny part about it is basically every wrestler you just named knew each other and learned to work in Japan.
Yes, 100%.
Japan always had a fixation on pro wrestling, and it being Japan, you don't have all that many great big giant dudes. It's a land of smaller guys with high work rates.
Yep.
And these guys all came up in that era and in that environment. So it was dudes that knew the Mexican style, but learned more of a... It wasn't even the strong style at the time.
No.
But just a more physical technical style than the traditional lucha style, but they could do the lucha style if they needed to.
Well, and then it also had American storytelling mixed into it, because that's one of the things that drives me nuts in lucha. There's a lot of stuff in lucha where I'm just like, what? Like this isn't fucking logical right now. Like, why the fuck is this happening?
Right.
Whereas they were taking the cool spectacle moves of lucha and the hard hitting style, the Japanese stuff, and then combining it for an American audience, where it's like, okay, let's put this guy in a story that makes sense.
I also like the fact that if it was a regular tag team match, or if it was a singles match, it basically was always American style.
Yeah.
With high-flying lucha spots, etc., etc. But the second there was a six-man tag, it was a fucking trios match. Lucha rules, you go to the floor, it's the same thing as a tag. And so it just fairly seamlessly would go between the different, more athletic styles like that.
Yeah. And we just got so many cool matches out of it and stuff that would say pay-per-views, getting to see Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio, Halloween
Havoc 97.
Yeah, exactly.
God
Dude,
damn,
it's
greatest match in the history. My wife and I were laying in bed the other night and going to the Peacock Network channel, Peacock on TV to watch some Modern Family. And it was in the continue watching spots, and the tile right next to Modern Family was Halloween Havoc 97. And I remembered, oh yeah, I've got that paused literally as Eddie's walking out to the ring for Havoc 97. I'm like, hey babe, you want to watch one of my favorite wrestling matches of all time? She's like, sure. So we watched that just 3 days ago. It's fucking great.
Great match.
Fucking great.
Well, hey, look, so since you're only up to 1998 right now and you're watching, before we eject out of WCW, is there anything else you want to hit before we jump over to WWE Attitude Era?
There were still some hiccups for WCW. For as many things as they were doing right, you had your Glaciers.
You had Steve Mongo McMichael on commentary.
If Glacier...
Holding a small dog.
If Glacier would have been 3 years sooner...
Would have been huge.
Would have been huge.
If they would have had a Mortal Kombat character in 1990, oh, buddy.
But by 1997...
When everybody else is which is the late 90s is the era in pro wrestling where everybody just wore black t-shirts.
Yep.
If you were in the NWO, black t-shirt. If you were Stone Cold Steve Austin, black t-shirt. If you were on the ECW roster, black t-shirt. And then there's Glacier.
Yep. But, thankfully, for as bad as Glacier was, and no offense to Glacier, the Glacier gimmick, like I said, a couple years sooner,
wrong place, wrong
would have
time.
been fucking huge.
That's all it was.
Ray, whatever his name is.
Yeah. Cool karate dude.
Great athlete.
Cool look. Great entrance, by the way. The whole snowing in the arena thing.
And what he did in the ring was great.
Yeah.
It was very good athletically.
It also was kind of interesting, to see the him and Wrath and Mortis fighting, just because of the cool mask of Mortis in ring.
Mortis was the shit. That was what. Oh, the saving grace for fucking Glacier was that it got us Mortis. Mortis, for whatever reason, that wild ass fucking demon zombie mask that he wrestled in, the look, Mortis worked. I don't know why.
It was the wet hair.
It was a gimmick in an era where gimmicks weren't popular.
Gimmicks were out.
But goddamn, he worked.
Yeah.
Man, Canyon was so fucking good. And Mortis, the character, he just was awesome. Did moves that were like, what the fuck? Oh, he was awesome.
But it just wasn't the thing at the time. It was the same thing where imagine in the mid 90s going to a Kiss concert. People were like, I don't want to see this.
Right.
Right. This is what I'm here for.
We hated Glacier, but we loved Mortis.
In retrospect.
Yep.
All right. So let's make the jump over then to WWE and the Attitude Era during this time. So this is interesting because this is WWE is losing in the ratings. They are losing to WCW. Can you kind of talk about the importance of that for people who are outside the pro wrestling bubble, of why that matters and why the 83 weeks matters?
Vince had always been number one. The New York territory was always the place that people wanted to go. The New York territory was always the one that had the most celebrity interactions. Like, Vince was used to being the big dog. NWA WCW was always kind of the other place that, was lesser for whatever reason. Vince kind of just got lazy and complacent. Once he started to lose, it's like it stunned him. It's like it wasn't a temporary thing. It went on for a while. He didn't really have any ideas, and it took a real life situation that made him look like an asshole that all of a sudden, oh, well, maybe we could do something with this. Mr. McMahon, the character, it was an accident, but he realized what was going on.
He capitalized on it.
Thanks to the urging of some other people. They're like, dude, you got to run with this. It was the difference maker,
Well, and this is interesting too, to kind of get the listener in on this, where it's like Vince McMahon owning the WWF/WWE had always been, him as the owner had always been a background thing that was not an on-screen character. Like Vince was on TV, but he was an announcer. He was Vince McMahon, the announcer, he wasn't the owner. He had Jack Tunney, the president of the WWE,
who was the figurehead.
He was the figurehead. He was the authority guy.
Yep.
If tough decisions had to be made, Jack Tunney was there to say who was going to be fighting for the strap at the Royal Rumble.
Yep.
That kind of shit. So yeah, but to pull back the curtain and be like, hey, I'm not really just like a dopey announcer that says, what a maneuver. Like,
I'm actually the boss.
Like, I actually own this motherfucker. And that shit where that dude spit on me, that was real. And here we are.
Yep.
And that coupled with like Stone Cold Steve Austin winning the King of the Ring, where he like cuts the Austin 3:16 speech, like those two things didn't happen at like exactly the same time, but like it's starting to bubble and starting to percolate, and things are starting to happen.
You're also talking about organic things that Vince didn't do.
Yeah, he hadn't planned it.
That Austin 3:16 promo came out of nowhere. And the other thing that really started to turn the tide, getting Mike Tyson. And that wasn't necessarily Vince's idea. That was Shane McMahon.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if you bring in Mike Tyson, you're going to have eyes on you.
Period.
And it really did help to make that situation where now you have, and again, we really are now getting into that attitude era where it's like you have the Generation X who are crotch chopping, suck it, very bad boy behavior that you hadn't seen on WWE before.
Urging chicks in the crowd to flash their tits on live television.
Yeah.
It was Vince decided to start catering to the teenage market, and he went right for the teenage boys, and sex sells, and violence is appealing, and, it worked.
Yeah, it was very 90s in that regard, where it's just like
tits and ass.
Tits and ass, and dudes kicking ass.
Yep.
And dudes wearing black t-shirts and
factions.
Yeah, and faction warfare.
Everybody's got to have a faction.
Yeah, which, you know what, honestly, I prefer a faction to a job.
Yeah.
If we have to take a pick. But not too many factions. Tony Khan, lay out the fucking factions. Jesus Christ. Not everybody has to be in a goddamn trios team.
Especially when you don't have any good ones.
Yeah.
That's beside
the point, Tony. Nobody likes AEW. But yeah, man, it is like this thing where now you start to see it forming and changing, and Vince just kind of takes the governor off everything. It's like, let's just push the limit. Fuck it. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
And because he's seeing what Eric Bischoff is doing with the NWO, NWCW, and he also is watching, or some people at WWE at least are watching what Paul Heyman is doing with ECW.
Yep.
And if you want to talk about we can't talk about the Attitude Era without talking about ECW's influence on
extreme.
Yeah. Can you explain to the audience what ECW is?
Well, ECW was a nothing East Coast local indie NWA affiliate fed. It was Eastern Championship Wrestling, but it even had a different name before that. But they were an NWA affiliate. It was a place where a lot of the indie guys were getting started. They brought in Eddie Gilbert. He took over the book, started making some changes. I feel like he's the one that initially brought Paul Heyman in as talent. Paul started working behind the scenes. Things evolved. Paul ended up, I guess, buying out the original owner.
Yeah.
Had Shane Douglas as his main heel champion. One night, they split from the NWA in fairly dramatic fashion. Shane took the 10 pounds of gold and, if I'm not mistaken, spit on it and threw it in the trash and pulled out a new belt. And ECW kind of stabbed the NWA in the back for real.
Yep.
And Extreme Championship Wrestling blew up.
So, listener, to kind of paint what ECW is after that, it's kind of akin to like the Ramones playing at CBGBs, or like the punk scene in Los Angeles in the late 70s, where it's like it's pro wrestling, but it's a way harder, different edge than we've been presented before. And especially during that time, both in WCW and WWE, where it's very cartoony, these characters are real and they're having real problems. And there's a lot of blood and guts. And it's very much that whole tits and ass violence thing you're talking about for the teenage boys. It's ECW.
Cranked up. Good Lord. Paul knew that his television was not, especially at the time, being seen a lot of places outside of certain markets. The markets it was in, it was usually on at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah, my buddy Joe Wise had a satellite dish, and every time he recorded, it was like 2, 3 in the morning on like some obscure channel.
Paul said, "Fuck it." When you watched ECW TV, it was Pantera, it was Metallica,
White Zombie.
it was White Zombie, it was licensed music that he was not paying for. It was like they didn't give a fuck. It was wild. It was very wild. It was very, very violent. It was very skimpy clad women. Barely even describes it.
Strippery?
It was strippers.
Like
having
it was
lesbian fights.
It was the kind of thing where it's like a titty might pop. Like at any point, a titty might pop.
Yeah, if they weren't super glued.
Yeah,
into those goddamn outfits.
Yeah, basically, anytime you saw a female manager walk out in ECW, it's akin to the last fight scene in Dave Chappelle. Shit, not How High.
Half baked.
Thank you. Where the assassin's titty pops out, and he's like, "That's a full titty."
Yep.
And yeah, it's that kind of deal.
Yep. Yeah. It it was cool. Paul got a lot out of nothing. He got a lot out of very, very little.
He is the best booker / writer ever. That is the best at. He can camouflage your weaknesses and expand your strengths.
Good God, he can camouflage your weaknesses.
He is so good at making sure the things you're dog shit at, people don't notice.
The other thing that was really fucking cool, especially early ECW, it was basically the same setup as the OG Raw. Originally, all the Raws came out of the Manhattan Center. Fucking ECW was always from the ECW arena.
Yes.
They had the most dedicated fans that were there every week. They knew every person. They knew every backstory. They did not give a fuck who Paul wanted them to cheer and boo. They decided on their own who they were cheering, who they were booing. People got over in that environment that we never would have seen otherwise. Mikey Whipwreck would have never existed outside of that.
Spike Dudley would have never existed outside of ECW.
But good God.
I don't know if the Sandman would have existed outside of ECW. Nah. A guy in Zubas that comes out with the Singapore cane and smokes in the audience and drinks beer, like,
well, you saw the OG Sandman, didn't you?
Oh yeah,
Surfer Sandman.
Yeah, Surfer Sandman. Which, yeah, again, shout out to Dark Side of the Ring, the Dark Side of the Ring Sandman documentary where they show.
They did one on him.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's great.
I need to see it.
Yeah, they show him in the Sandman gimmick where he's like got the surfboard in the bodysuit.
I don't have cable, anything like that, so it's like I don't even know where to see.
Oh, YouTube.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. Like when he had a surfboard, he wore the board shorts, he was like, something else.
Yeah. It was definitely like a very Wild West, like, promotion. It was definitely a lot of things people said about it in terms of like, it's one of those things where it ages badly because there's the hot stuff in the first few years of ECW, but then like once you get in the late 90s, there's just nothing there because like all the talent gets poached by WCW in WWE, and also like just kind of running out of fumes with the shock factor of what you can do next because they just kept like up in the ante, and it's like, all right, man, like what can you do that I haven't seen? Like I'm watching New Jack jump off of fucking 25-foot balconies. Like, what can you do besides like just like throwing a guy into a pit of knives that I haven't seen yet?
It also didn't help that the paychecks weren't clearing, and when ECW started running out of money, the reasons for people to stay started to dry up. I don't know, loyalty to Paul.
Yeah.
It started to dwindle because the paychecks started to bounce and the bills started to pile up. And fuck, WCW was offering guaranteed contracts.
Yeah.
It's like, go sign there. You're going to sign a 2-year contract.
You're going to make over 6 figures.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed 6 figures.
Whether they use you or not.
And you're working 1 day a week.
Like, why wouldn't you go?
Maybe some house shows.
Why wouldn't you go?
It's pretty chill.
Why wouldn't you go?
Yeah.
And by a certain point, most of your homies had gone there.
Yeah. Well, the ones that are good.
Like, your buddies are there. Why wouldn't you want to be with them?
Yeah.
On national cable television. #1 rated show. Like, hell yeah. Sign me up. I'll get out of this fucking bingo hall and, get a paycheck that deposits every 2 weeks and I'm good to go.
100%. Okay, so now we've talked a little bit about ECW being sprinkled into the WWE in 97, 98 with the Attitude Era. And we're going to stop. We're not going to go into the full Attitude Era because, hey, let's leave a little something there. Maybe we could do another episode just all Attitude Era.
We can bring this back at some point.
But we have talked at this point. We've talked ECW's influence. We've talked Stone Cold. We've talked D-Generation X. We haven't talked Rock.
The Rock is to this day going strong. To be fair, he grew up in the business.
Yeah.
He grew up going from territory to territory. Like, it was in his blood. I'm not surprised that, he wound up being as successful with it as he did. He was hungry as fuck. From his unfortunate start onwards, he knew what he wanted. He acted like he was a big deal from day one.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
I think it's funny that when Vince gets somebody like Rock, and he did the same thing with Mark Henry, and he did the same thing with Kurt Angle, if he gets like a super athletic dude, he brings him in as the big smiley baby face every
And
time.
it's just god awful.
And it never works for anybody.
It's god awful.
Everybody dies a death because they're a dog shit rookie that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and you're like, everybody's gonna love you because you're like the nicest guy ever, and it's just like nobody's gonna like, because everybody's gonna boo the shit out of you.
Yep.
People are gonna chant "Die Rocky, die," and that's exactly what happened. Rocky Maivia showed up. It's
Fortunately, in a lot of the cases, those dudes wind up turning heel at some point. And for whatever reason, a lot of them, second they turn heel and start running their fucking mouths, shit changes.
yeah, it's weird. It's like dudes that have been athletes all their life are pretty good at being bullies. Who would have thought?
Shocker. A dickhead football player. Jock asshole, sorry.
Randy Orton, kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, but it is interesting that like they try to pigeonhole those guys with those gimmicks first off and it never works. And then they turn them heel and let them have a bit of personality. It's like, oh, this all of a sudden works.
Yeah.
And then you get into stuff where like now you start getting into like that great feud between like The Rock and Triple H, where they had stuff going on. Where like finally you established Rock enough as a heel where you could make him a good guy and then go against Triple H.
It also didn't hurt that The Rock's dad being Rocky Johnson. Rocky Johnson always thought he was the greatest thing on the fucking face of the planet. Period. So it was real easy for The Rock to just know that he was the hottest thing out there. God damn it. You just haven't fucking realized it yet. You know? Like, that shit's in his blood, man.
Is there anything we're missing here as we transition from new generation to Attitude Era?
Tons we're missing, but we're gonna miss because it's just, good God,
It's so
a
much.
busy era.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface in terms of like that transition. But those are the big things that marked those transitions.
Yeah, Mike Tyson showing up.
It is the biggest thing right
Like,
there.
it brought so many eyeballs to pro wrestling, period. It was great because him showing up sparked a whole bunch of shit in WCW. The simple fact that Eric Bischoff and fucking Hulk Hogan took over the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Good God. Pop culture? What? That was fucking Johnny Carson's show. Not at the time, but
Right.
you know what I'm
But,
saying.
yeah, still.
Like,
It's the big.
Jesus Christ,
It's the big of the the late night shows.
Like, you talk about being acknowledged by the mainstream, if
Yeah.
you will. You know, that era was nuts. What's weird is, as big as it was, it almost feels like in some ways it's about to become even bigger.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to lead into finishing this off with like the modern era of wrestling. I think it's because of how worldwide accessible it is now because of the internet. Because that was there before, but TKO seems to really be focusing on the idea the same way they do with the UFC, where it's like, let's go to more international markets. Let's have pay-per-views in different countries. Let's get outside of the lower 48.
Right. And like, it's just the people from the outside that have come in. Logan Paul.
Yeah, incredible.
Like, it's not this weird, I don't know how to explain it. Like, they're bringing in people that are bringing in completely new audiences. They're bringing in people from outside that have these massive built-in fan bases
like Bad Bunny.
that are going to follow them wherever they go, that get the taste and stay.
Well, because it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like, you know how Mortal Kombat has a thing where they can now introduce anybody into the Mortal Kombat universe and it makes sense?
Right.
Like, that's kind of the way WWE is in the pop culture universe. Like, if you can sort of kind of work a match and you have a fan base, they'll put you on, you'll have a match with somebody, and then maybe they're going to keep leeching off your fan base after.
But like the Logan Pauls that show up.
Who is
are,
incredible. Yeah,
holy shit, like one of the best workers you've seen. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, and he loves it. And it's like, these kids that grew up, some of them not even really watching Attitude Era. Some of them grew up in the John Cena,
the Cena era. They're Cena kids.
Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just so weird. We're getting old.
Hey, man, the sands of the hourglass keep on dropping. Well, look, Ben, dude, I appreciate you coming and hanging tonight, man, and having this conversation. And
Anytime.
like I said, there might have to be a part 2 where we actually get
We
into the
could go
Attitude Era
for
proper.
days and days about this.
We're not going to plug social media for you because
Nope.
you're a man that just, you're kind of like the end of a Incredible Hulk episode where they just play the sad music and you walk down the road to the next town.
All my shit's set to private anyways.
Fair enough. Listener, find me at Neil to No One on Instagram. That's where my link tree is. You can find everything there. Thanks for listening to the episode. You got a friend into pro wrestling, please send them this podcast. Let them check it out. And by the way, you can also let them know there's over 170 episodes of What You Into. Each one's on a different topic and subject. Everything is evergreen. Jump in wherever you want. You don't have to listen to every episode in a row. And honestly, please don't go back and listen like the first 25 episodes. I'm really fucking bad. Hey, Ben, thanks for coming and doing the show.
Yes, sir. Anytime. And before we get out of here, we should say, just yesterday, we lost one member of the pro wrestling fandom universe. Rest in peace to our buddy Thad. You know, we feeling for you, Melissa.
All right, P. Thad, and Melissa, your thoughts. And listener, peace.